Welcome, everybody. I declare this town meeting to be in session. We have achieved a quorum. I will have the exact numbers in a few moments. People are still being checked in, but we'll get going because there's quite a bit of business to be done tonight. So if we could start, as always, by if you could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Also, since we've last met, we've lost some dear friends and great contributors to the town. Mary Gret Lozo, Frank Sawyer, Fillmore Butch Willie, and Robert A. Hooper. If we could just have a moment of silence to remember them, please. Thank you. While we'll miss all of them, I just want to pause for a moment about Gret. When I first moved to town, I ran for library trustee because nobody else was running. And between then and the election, two other people joined the race, and I was talking to my neighbors, Bob and Mary and Scott, about it. And they said, oh, people got into the race. Who are you running against? And I said, oh, well, two women, Mary Lozo and Carolyn Columbus. And my neighbors went, oh, you haven't got a chance. And I said, well, but you're my neighbors. I mean, you'll vote for me, right? They go, maybe. I don't know. Well, needless to say, I came in fourth in a three-person race. And, quite frankly, having gotten to know Gret and Carolyn, I'd have voted for them too. They were both, Carolyn continues to be a wonderful contributor to the town, but Gret was truly special and we'll all miss her, especially at the carols sing every Christmas. So if we could, now we have a presentation. If I could have Kenny Mitchell come to the podium along with Representative Cutler and Wes Bless.
Oh, yeah. We'll bring it after. We need one more. Kenny's going to bring it.
No, okay.
Where's Kathy Marini? Kathy, can you come up, please?
Just give her an applause to get her going.
Sorry to have to do this to you, Kathy. You look great. This is an official citation. Be it hereby known to all, the Hanson Board of Selectmen take this means to express its most sincere appreciation to Kathleen T. Marini in official recognition of your 18 years of service to the residents of Hanson as an elected member of the Hanson Board of Assessors. The board hereby awards this citation. Your expertise in real estate has been an invaluable resource to the town of Hanson. Your dedication, commitment to setting fair, accurate assessments to homes and businesses, creating an affordable community in which to live and raise a family has distinguished you as an outstanding citizen of our town. The town of Hanson wishes to recognize you and express the community's deepest appreciation for your selfless service to the citizens of Hanson. We sincerely thank you and express our deepest gratitude and appreciation for your dedication, energy, and commitment to the town of Hanson, and wish you all the best in your retirement from public service and with your future endeavors. Thank you very much, Kathy.
Don't go away. We're not done with you. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Representative Josh Cutler, and standing in for Senator Brady, who is in the State House this evening, hopefully getting some good news with our state budget, is distinguished Selectman Wes Bloss. We have good tidings from the Massachusetts State Legislature to recognize the wonderful work that Kathy has given to the town over these many years. Local government is truly where the rubber meets the road, and I don't have to tell all of you because you're engaged in it, but we really very much appreciate all the time and sacrifice that Kathy's put in to serve the town. And obviously the Board of Assessors is not the most glamorous position, but it is a truly important one for the town to function adequately. So thank you so much. I have a citation here, and that one's for you, Wes. I'll go first, right? Age before beauty, Wes?
Absolutely.
All right. Commonwealth of Massachusetts House of Representatives. Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Kathy Marini in recognition of 18 years of outstanding and dedicated service on the Hanson Board of Assessors. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Given this 6th day of May 2019 at the State House, Boston, Massachusetts, signed by Robert A. DeLeo, Speaker of the House, and Representative Josh Cutler. Kathy, congratulations. Wes, come on in.
I don't know if I look like Tom Brady, but...
Tom Brady.
Yeah. Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Senate official citation. Be it known that the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to Kathy Marini in recognition of your 18 years of expertise and dedicated service on the Hanson Board of Assessors, May 2001 to May 2019. And be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends its best wishes for continued success, that this citation be duly signed by the President of the Senate and attested to, and a copy thereof transmitted by the Clerk of the Senate, by President of the Senate Karen E. Spilka, attested by the Clerk of the Senate Michael D. Hurley, and offered by State Senator Michael D. Brady on May 6, 2019.
You want to say something?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Totally surprised, and we need someone to run on the Board of Assessors, so it's not that difficult, and you'll enjoy it. It's a good group. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Just a little bit of housekeeping here before we have our next presentation. The rules of procedure we are using tonight is town meeting time. Bruce Young should get out his copy now. He's got it, yep. Well, I have one too. So those will be the rules we'll be operating under tonight. Also, let me make a motion. Several of the articles tonight are going to require a 2/3 or a 99% vote in order to carry. I'm making a motion that the meeting allows me to determine whether those amounts have been met. Now, that doesn't mean it's final. If somebody wants to challenge my ruling and say, I don't think it was 2/3, then we'll go to a vote. No problem with that. But this just allows me on a unanimous or a near unanimous vote to declare we've met the requirements. Seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. And now, if we could have the town librarian come forward for a short presentation. We're not voting on anything about the library at this moment, but this is just informational for a future town meeting. And you require if we could have the screen and the projector set up, please. And while that's happening, if I could just make a quick announcement. The visitor section is over here. Anybody who is not voting tonight and visiting, could you please sit in that section? Any town residents who are voting, please move out of that section, just to make it easier for our counters later on. Oh. And as I disappear, I'm told that we have an attendance of 191.
evening. I'm Karen Stolper, the library director. I'd like to introduce you to Ruth Cole, who was hired as a consultant by the Board of Library Trustees to assist with the planning project. Ruth has over 40 years of experience in both small and large public libraries. She was the Director of Administration and Finance at the Boston Public Library and is very familiar with libraries in our area, having also served as the Director of the Plymouth Public Library for 7 years. She now works as an independent library consultant. We're pleased to have her with us tonight to provide you with some information about the library's planning project. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and it's a pleasure to be here at a town meeting. I was telling Karen it's been a number of years since I've been in a town meeting where I've been at the front of the room, and so it's nice to be back. As Karen mentioned, I'm here on behalf of the Board of Trustees to just give you a brief introduction to some planning efforts that have been ongoing for a little over a year now with the library. When I was thinking about tonight, I grew up when libraries were books, maybe some LPs, or I guess they're called vinyl recordings now. Everyone was expected to be very quiet if you spoke at all. You took what you wanted to use home, unless it was a reference book that you were going to use because you had a school project and it had to be used in the library, or you had a particular piece of information. Things are very different in libraries now. We have had also, at the same time, very much of a big change in our culture and our society and what people expect of their library and what they want from their library. Libraries have had a choice, if you will, which is to look forward and to move and keep a pace with the changes in culture and what their communities are looking for, or to stay fixed in what had been the old traditional library. You're fortunate to have a Board of Trustees for the Hanson Public Library and a library director who are looking forward and are really looking out for the interests of the citizens of this town and wanting to ensure that you have excellent public library service here. So I'll take a few minutes and just talk with you about the planning that has been ongoing here. It's very much grounded in the community. We sought input from the community in a variety of ways, which we'll talk about in a minute. It was a great project, and I really enjoyed working here in Hanson. So, as I said, a little over a year ago, January of 2018, the Board of Trustees brought me on board to help them with this project. They wanted to look at first what library services are desired by the people who live in Hanson. And then secondly, they wanted me to look at the current condition and the viability, the future viability of the existing building, which is now close to 30 years old, in terms of its ability to meet those desired community service needs. And because this is town meeting, I think it's important for you to know this is being paid for by a grant that the Hanson Public Library received through the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, Library Building Program grant. And so far, the state has been helping with this effort. So, first phase, we wanted to look at services, and that really was developing a new strategic plan for the library. As I said, very much grounded in the community, seeking input from the community about what they wanted. We did it in a variety of ways. There was a survey document. Many of you may have participated either in paper form or online or social media. We held a series of focus groups. We had from age 8 on up. Those are always a lot of fun and very interesting, and people are very candid about what they think about the library and what the library could be doing for them to make the community an even better place. Staff interviews. Staff are really important. They really do have a pulse on what people are looking for. Public flip charting. This is just big flip charts that were up in the library where people would be asked to tell us what they thought would make the library a better place. Some individual conversations with key stakeholders in town. And Karen actually spent some time at the commuter rail station trying to get some folks as they were running for the train to see if she could talk with them. It was a bit of a challenge, I understand. People are right at the last minute there. So we asked the community really 3 basic questions. How could the library and the services that it currently offers be improved? Are there new and different services you'd like to have available to you here in the community? And what would make it a better resource to you? The second question was, if you were designing the library today, what would you want it to be like? What would you want to keep? What would you want to have be the same? What would you want added? What would you want changed? And then we wanted them to think out of many years ahead. What do you think it's going to be like 5 to 10 years from now? How are people going to use libraries? Where are they going to be getting the kinds of things that people go to libraries for now? And what new and different things might come along? This is what we learned from Hanson, from the people who live here. People want to be able to borrow books, DVDs, CDs, whether it's the physical object or it's done digitally. The digital use of library collections is skyrocketing, but there's still a tremendous circulation of traditional library materials. Number 1 on the survey, and we heard about it a lot in the focus groups, more programs and classes for children, teens, and adults. It's really popular here already, and people want more of it. Friendly and knowledgeable staff to assist with information searching, technology use, and still recommending a good read. What should I read next? Computers, printers, and other technology and internet access. People, not everybody can afford it. And the library is a public resource where people can come and take advantage of this publicly offered technology and have people who can tell them how to use it, which is really helpful. In Hanson, this was a high priority. People want homebound service, whether it's someone who is aging in the home or is temporarily homebound. And I was surprised, frankly, to see this so high on the list, but I think it shows a sensitivity to the community. Expanded partnerships with community organizations, schools, and groups. People felt this was really important, that everybody's working together here, that the library isn't out on their own, just doing their own thing, that they're very connected in other activities going on in the town. Expanded hours. People want nights, they want Sunday afternoons, they want to be able to get in there when they're not at work. This is a challenge in every single community. Hanson's not alone. And they want a comfortable and welcoming building. So from the public input, the planning committee learned what is it about the current library operation that's valued, and what are things that people have suggested to us for improvements. And out of that, we gained insight into what the library would and could be like even 20 years out, which is what we need for the library building program. And that insight provided us with the bases for crafting the new strategic plan, which was adopted by the trustees last September and then subsequently by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, and a library building program, which was adopted by the trustees in March of this year. And we'll talk about the building program more a little bit later. So the second phase of the planning work was around crafting the library building program. And underneath that library building program is that strategic plan that says, this is what we want for library services. This is what the library is going to prioritize over the next several years. And what do we need out of our building in order for us to be successful in delivering those services to the community? So this is what the community said they would like out of their library building. They want a welcoming, attractive building, a place people want to spend time with, flexible spaces and furnishings. They want things that you can move around. They want not to be locked in. Those of you who use the library know you walk into the library and there's a big, solid, massive circulation desk there. New libraries, they're on casters. They can be moved. If the way people use the library changes, you can shift the furniture around. If people are building open floor plan housing now, they want open floor plan in their libraries. Expanded public programming areas, large and smaller meeting rooms, study rooms, very important. There's a need in the community to be able to have meetings of organizations and clubs and groups, and the library needs more programming area for their own purposes. They're very limited. The space now is shared with the Multi-Service Senior Center, which is also a very active programming organization in town, and there's just not enough hours in the day to do the kind of programming people would like to see. They want a contemporary and adaptable power and technology infrastructure system. The building's old. It's hard to find an outlet. You have to search and hunt. And it's a place where, again, it limits the flexibility of the building, and it limits people being able to come in and use potentially their own device in the building if they want to bring something in from home, a laptop. They want the building to be easy to move around in. They want it to make sense, that they know, okay, if I go here, this is what's here, this is next to that, that it's fully ADA compliant. It's in pretty good shape on the ADA front, but it's got some room to improve there. They want an environmentally friendly and energy efficient building. Looking ahead in the long term, you want a building that's not going to cost a lot to operate, and getting into something that's more energy efficient will help with that in the long run. They want technology and telecommunications that support library-owned and personally owned devices. So they want to be able to plug in, they want to be able to have good, strong Wi-Fi, connection to printers, just, you know, it's all about technology now. Ability for secure use of public programming in meeting rooms after hours. People want to be able to get in and use these spaces when the library's not open. And libraries that are being renovated now and are being constructed now, almost every single one of them has the way for community groups to be able to get in, use those public meeting rooms, and not have to be using them when the library is staffed. And certainly not least, but last on the list, is a dedicated space for teens and children. Libraries are a great place for kids. They're a place that are welcoming, they're safe, there's a lot for kids to do there, and so that was a high priority in the surveys and in the focus groups. So my task was to take a look at the current building and say, can it do the job that people want out of their library here in town? And the short list for me is that the Hanson Public Library is a very attractive building architecturally. It's in a great location, but it's too small to do what people want it to do. It's very inflexible, and the systems, the infrastructure, the technology, the electrical systems are old now. They just can't support the services that are desired. So what are our options looking down the road here? One of them is an extensive renovation expansion of current facility. It would nearly double in the size from 8,000 to 16,000 square feet to respond to the kinds of services that people are looking for. Or the construction of a brand new building on a new location. Potential sites include the McQuan School adjacent to the current library, or the former Plymouth State County Hospital site. Now, there's planning, I think you're aware of, going on with the Multi-Service Senior Center as well, and they have, I think, some similar space challenges. And as that process moves forward, I would expect there might be some intersection between those two projects, certainly conversation about the existing shared building. So what are the next steps in this process? Trustees, town officials, state officials work on a possible timeline. At some point, it would be desirable that it gets into the capital plan with some dates attached to it. An architectural firm would be engaged fairly shortly to assist with the development of some conceptual drawings so people could begin to see what a new Hanson Public Library could be. Funding for this would be through that same grant I mentioned earlier, through the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. The trustees have funds still available to do that. Determine a desirable site for the library. Is it the existing building, renovated and enlarged? Is it in a new location? And then to develop a funding plan, including advocating for additional state funding through the Mass Board of Library Commissioners Public Library Construction Program. There's activity this year legislatively to consider some further authorization of that program. There have been over 50 brand new libraries built in the past 30 years with that money, and I think it's 160 or so renovations and additions that have been funded with it. They're not 100% grant, but it's a big match that comes to communities when they meet eligibility. And this building program plan that has just been adopted by the trustees is the first step in that process. So for those of you who are eager to learn more, we are going to do a public presentation next week on May 16th. It'll be at the library at 6:30 in the evening, and we can share with you more of the details, particularly about the library building program. And it's also available online at the library website, or if you want to pick up paper copies of the strategic plan or of the library building program, go in and just ask at the reference information desk there, and they'll get a copy for you. So I just want to close by saying, again, it's been a pleasure to work with the trustees. I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to talk with you this evening about it. It's been a great town to work in. I appreciate all the time that people have put in coming out to our focus groups and participating through the surveys. It's what makes it important and come to fruition for all of you in the future. Thank you.
All righty. At this point, I will adjourn the town meeting, and so that we can open up the May 2019 special town meeting. And we will proceed to the articles. Those are the articles that are printed on the yellow paper. Article 1, Mr. Bloss.
I move the town vote $6,736 from free cash to pay unpaid bills from fiscal year 2018.
Second.
Seconded, Mr. Bloss.
These funds are needed to pay for bills received after the close of fiscal year 2018. This requires a 9/10 vote.
So, any discussion on Article 1? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 1 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it by the required 9/10 vote. Article 2. Ms. Fitzgerald-Kemet.
I move the town vote to transfer $82,650 from free cash to supplement appropriations previously voted at the annual town meeting of May 2018 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018 for various town departments as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. What we'll do for the discussion part of this, Ms. Fitzgerald-Kemet, you want to do the explanation, or?
That would be great. The purpose of this article is to supplement a number of line items in the current fiscal year's budget, FY19, in order to fund a number of additional expenses associated with the following. Item 1, IT services. Item 2, IT salary. The IT director is shared between Hanson and East Bridgewater via an intermunicipal agreement. As the director is actually a Hanson employee, the town needs to fully fund the salary. East Bridgewater reimburses Hanson for half the salary and benefits. During the initial budgeting process, Hanson only funded its share of the salary, causing deficit in the line. Item 3 covers shortfall in the overtime line. Item 4 covers shortfall in the fuel line. Item 5, security cameras.
So what I'll do is I will read each item number and pause, and if anybody would like to discuss that particular item, please say hold loud enough for me to hear it, and then we'll come back to that. Otherwise, I'll consider it accepted. Oh, thank you very much. The question was, do we know how much money we have to spend tonight? And yes, we do. So the available funds at this moment, before we've spent anything in the town meeting, stands as follows. In free cash, we have $1,256,700. We have $1,204,005 in the stabilization fund. The school stabilization fund has $95,758. Water surplus has $545,513. The recreation retained earnings account has $78,656. And the solid waste retained earnings account has $126,576. If anybody would like a refresher on that when the appropriate fund comes up, please let me know and I'll give it to you again. So all of these funding sources will be free cash. So item 1, accepted. Item 2, accepted. Item 3, accepted. Item 4, accepted. Item 5, accepted. So the motion, the article having been moved and seconded, all those in favor of Article 2 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 2 is adopted. Article 3. Do we have a motion? This is a good time to do this. If you could, even if you think I should know your name, and I probably should, if you could, when you come to the microphone, either to make a motion or to comment on something, please start by giving your name and address for the record. Thank you very much.
Diane Cohen, Pleasant Street. Article 3, I move the town vote to transfer $75,000 from free cash to supplement funding of the fiscal year 2019 recreation budget.
Second.
Seconded. Would you like to?
The funds are just needed to cover the current fiscal year expenses of the camp.
Any questions or comments on this article? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 3 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 3 is adopted. Article 4, Ms. Sloan. Oh, could we have the microphone?
It's on. I move the town vote to transfer from free cash $5,500 to purchase new election equipment.
Do we have a second? Seconded. Ms. Sloan.
With early voting now being implemented in all federal elections, the need for Central Tabulation Facility, a CTF, is essential to processing all of the early voting ballots on Election Day. In order to have a CTF, we are required to have another tabulator solely dedicated to the processing of early ballots.
Any questions or comments on Article 4? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 4 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 4 is adopted. Article 5. Lieutenant Casey.
I move the town will vote to transfer the sum of $7,000 free cash from the removal and replacement of 600 square feet of concrete sidewalk at the police station.
Second.
Seconded. Lieutenant Casey.
The current sidewalks are deteriorating and causing a trip hazard. The damaged areas have been fixed numerous times, and they've reached the point where the future repair is becoming impossible.
Any comments or questions on Article 5? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 5 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 5 is adopted. Article 6, Mr. Hayes.
I move the town vote $25,000 for free cash for replacement of tiles in 4 classrooms at the Hanson Middle School.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Hayes.
Hanson Middle School replacement of tiles and deteriorating and lifting tiles in the 4 classrooms, and the estimated cost is $25,000.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 6, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 6 is adopted. Article 7, Mr. Hayes.
I move the town vote to transfer $15,000 from free cash to reimburse the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District for the purchase and installation of solar-powered flashing school signs on Indian Head Street, which is also Route 58.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Hayes.
The school department undertook the installation of previously non-existing school zone signs at both approaches to the Indian Head School for student safety reasons. This article seeks to reimburse the work that was recommended to be done as soon as possible.
Any questions or comments on Article 7? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 7 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 7 is adopted. Article 8.
Michael Means, 342 South Street. I move the town to vote to transfer the sum of $30,000 from free cash for improvements to the Nathaniel Thomas Mill located on Liberty Street.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Means.
This money will be used to replace a rotted out sill on the front of the building, update the electrical code, and install a ramp from the parking lot to make the mill handicap accessible.
Any questions or comments on Article 8? Yes, sir. If you could please come to the microphone.
I think I was here about 12 months ago when...
Oh, could I get your name?
Oh, Steve McKinnon, 64 Stevens Street. I think I was here 12 months ago when somebody proposed $35,000 for the water wheel. At the time, I voiced concern about it. It looks like we have, in fact, taken the water wheel out and put it on the side. I don't think we've replaced it yet. And now we're looking for $30,000 more. Just a little history lesson. In 2008, we bought this property for $74,000. And I believe, somebody up there might correct me if I'm wrong, we had a lease of $1 a year for 100 years. At the time, I think I was sitting up in the Finance Committee and I expressed some concern towards it. And I think we even maybe have concerned about the ADA compliant issues and all that. Well, here they are slapping us in the face. I think it's outrageous that we're looking for $30,000 more for a building that we purchased for $74,000, and frankly, we didn't need to purchase. Last year, somebody brought up hydropower. Really? Somebody else brought up it's going to be a central part of our 200-year celebration. Take the money and improve the damn greens at the town hall. I also noted that the Finance Committee unanimously voted against this article. I would ask that the Finance Committee comment.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yes, so we took a look at it over the past 3 town meetings. I believe we've spent in the vicinity, including if you include this, anywhere, I think it was $60,000 to $70,000. So we came to the same conclusion that it was almost the same amount that we paid for the mill initially. No one has been able to provide any sort of long-term maintenance. This seems to be a reoccurring problem. So every year, year after year, the number seems to increase. So we just couldn't justify it for the taxpayers of the town as a whole to continually shell out 30 grand. You know, next year, is it going to be 40 grand? Is this going to be a yearly occurrence? And we didn't feel comfortable, you know, as being the financial stewards for the town in approving this.
Anybody else wish to comment?
Hi, I'm Melissa Valkovic, 372 Holmes Street. So my first question was going to be, I noticed that the Finance Committee members had not recommended this. I think my next question would be for the Nathaniel Thomas Mill Committee, if that was possible. Just if they have looked into other ways of maybe funding or having these fixed, like looking into different grants that might be out there, or perhaps an Eagle Scout that could help with some of this to offset costs for it. So, thank you.
Would somebody from the Thomas Mill Committee like to respond? Or Mr. Means?
This is something we just currently found, and we had found the issues that just showed up the sill recently. You noticed the door slacking, so we went under there and looked and found that it's all gone. This was just the way we thought we could find to fix this, get the problem fixed before it gets worse and cost a lot more money to fix it when the building caves in the front. No, we haven't looked for grants yet. I don't know what's out there.
I do have one more question. How often is the mill used in town? How often is it rented or utilized in some capacity?
Could somebody, would you like to speak, ma'am? Thank you, Steve.
All right, thank you. Sylvia Salas on Woodman Terrace. I'm the chair of the group, and I handle the rentals mostly. We usually have 3 or 4, maybe every other time per summer. I know it's hard. Sometimes there's flea markets. We had a wedding there not too long ago. This past winter, we had a wedding shower. People used the stove to keep the place warm. I can't tell you exactly how many. We haven't had a farmer's market for a couple years, but it is used for birthday parties, weddings, receptions. We had a Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. We had a movie made there a couple summers ago. We had Ghostbusters staying overnight there. It's been an interesting combination of different peoples using the place, but I don't have many reservations right now. We had a school dance a couple weeks ago. I can't tell you exactly how many people rent the place, but it stays fairly busy in the summer.
More importantly, did they find any ghosts?
They promised me that they would let me know every ghost they found, and I haven't heard a word.
All right, because if people are living there, that's a different story altogether.
I assured them that this was not the original building, and they probably were not going to find any ghosts. But if they did, I'd love to meet them. Excellent. I'm sure they'd have a good history.
We should bring them to town meeting. Mr. Means.
I'm sorry, I forgot. I did check with CPC about funding for this, and they said where it's not the original building, they will not cover it.
Ms. Norton, did you want to say something?
Patty Norton, Indian Path. I have a question. Are you also going to do something with the toilet facilities up there at the same time? Because you can't rent it without toilet facilities.
At this present time, there's no septic or running water in the building. What's been done is when people rent it, you tend to get the porta potties rented at the place, and that's what they use for a bathroom facility.
Mr. McKinnon?
Hence my point. Please, with all due respect, you guys drive by that as much as I do. Really, how often are people using it? I am all for investing in the community. Invest in the community in a way that benefits the majority, not the few. Please, stop the madness.
Yes, ma'am.
One more question.
Certainly.
How much does it cost to rent the mill? What do you charge? What is the money that's coming in?
If you could come to the microphone, or if the microphone can come to you.
We charge $25 per day, and that's because there is no water and no toilet facilities. We've talked about putting toilet facilities in, and my question to the person who says that is, who's going to clean them? That's not my job, and I'm not going to do it. Thank you very much. So it seems to be working out quite well that people get the porta potties, and I don't get the job.
Mr. Young.
Bruce Young, 594 Indian Head Street, Hanson. Just to give you a little bit of history of this property, it just didn't appear from nowhere. It was the main project for this town's bicentennial project back in 1976. It was built with the donations of the people of the town of Hanson at no cost to the town. It was constructed using lumber that was actually hand-hewn from the town forest to keep it historically correct and architecturally correct. And again, it was at no cost to the town of Hanson. It was completed in 1983 as part of the main part of the Hanson's bicentennial project. The previous speaker talked about the $1 a year for 100 years. Because that property was going to change hands and was sold by the Cranberry Company that owned it, it was going to be bought by another individual and who wanted it, and if he had got it, his plans were to rip the building down. It's a main part of Hanson's historic past. The main building was tried to be duplicated for to look as much like the original Nathaniel Thomas Mill that was built there in 1695, which was the first mill in Plymouth County operated by water power. It's probably one of the most historic sites in Hanson. The town really got the building built for nothing, and yes, we have a $78,000 investment in the property from the person who wound up with the property and bought it from the Cranberry Company. Otherwise, it would have been sold to this other individual who would have ripped it to the ground. So it's an investment in Hanson's history. That's what it is. If you want an investment in the town's history, and the Thomas Mill represents that investment, this is a very small price to pay. I would ask the person from the Nathaniel Thomas Mill, other than this $30,000, is the building structurally sound? And the other question I had was, I know we have money invested in a new water wheel. When is that going to be installed? Because what's a mill without a functioning water wheel?
Mr. Means?
To my knowledge, everything else is structurally sound in the building. The wheel is being built. I believe it's a company in Pembroke that it's being built at. It's in process. It's going to be a metal frame. I believe it's stainless, but I'm not positive. Everything lined with wood, so it won't rot out like the current last one did. So a lot longer lifespan.
All right. So you never know what you're going to get a good discussion on. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Ann Quimby-Verity, 502 Indian Head Street. I don't think this is really about how many people in the town use this. I think this is about the history of the town of Hanson. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. So with that, all those in favor of Article 8 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. I think the ayes have it, but I'm open to a challenge. Challenge, all right. So everybody was, when you registered, you were given a yellow card. If you could please, all those in favor of Article 8 signify by holding your card up, and please wait until the tellers have had a chance to count your vote. This is, if you're in favor of Article 8, please raise your card now.
Oh, it's nice to see spouses on the same page.
The night is young.
All right. Chief?
24.
24. Mr. Miko?
58.
58. Mr. Campbell?
30. 30.
All those opposed, please signify by holding up your card now. Mr. Amico?
19.
19. Chief?
17.
Mr. Campbell?
17.
17. $112 to 52, is that correct? By my count, it's 112 yes, 52 no. The ayes have it. Article 8 is adopted. Article 9, Ms. Fitzgerald-Kemet.
I move the town appropriate $1 million to pay costs of engineering, demolition, and remediation of McQuan Elementary School building, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to MGL Chapter 44, 7-1, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town, therefore. Any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of the issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved for this vote in accordance with MGL Chapter 4420, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Second.
Seconded. Ms. Kemmett.
Yes, I'm going to ask the town administrator to step up. I think that this is a large enough ticket item that I'd like to explain what we've done thus far, what the next steps are, and why we're proposing this.
Mr. McHugh.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to explain that this particular article gives the authorization to move forward at such time when it may make sense to demolish the building. We have a group together called the McQuon Reuse Committee, which has been looking over the past several months at potential reuse of this building, to the point where approximately 6 or 9 months or so ago, I put out an RFP seeking potential reuse, not consultants, but investors to come and give us some proposals as to possible reuse. After that, we decided to go and we spoke with a company, which some of you may be familiar with, Keller Williams. They have a municipal properties division, and we've engaged them to act as our brokers in terms of actively seeking out potential reuse for this building. The intention is that this particular company will bring to us, if they do find a potential, a viable project, will bring to us that particular project for action and approval up until the October town meeting. But we've got it scheduled out so that we will know in advance of the October town meeting whether or not we have something viable to bring to October town meeting. All that being said, the thought process was, at the same time that we have authorization to move forward, if we find there's no viable reuse of this building, to take the building down. The problem is, if we were to wait until October to seek the authorization we're seeking now, we'd lose, obviously, that significant appreciable amount of time. What we would lose is an appreciable amount of money that we are spending right now to insure the building, to heat the building, and I think much more significantly, this particular building is what they call an attractive nuisance. We carry a certain amount of liability with that building staying there vacant as it is right now. So, rather long-windedly, what we're seeking is sort of permission to go in both directions so that at the time that the Board of Selectmen can make a decision as to whether or not to advance something to town meeting, a viable project, or whether there's nothing in the offing, we can move to, unfortunately, at that point, take the building down and again, cut costs and cut liability.
I should note that because this involves borrowing, Article 9 has to be approved by a 2/3 vote. Mr. Santalucia.
Yes, hi, I'm Pepper Santalucia with 517 West Washington Street. And I just have a question as to whether a partial demolition is in the consideration. I know anyone who has kids in the long New England winters knows there's always a need to find some place for those kids to get their energy out. And a note that the gym in McQuon and the cafeteria were heavily used during the wintertime for various sports. And so I just wondered if I'd heard other people talk about the fact that maybe the core or the front of the McQuon building could be retained and used for community purposes. I'm not an engineer. I don't know much about buildings. it sounds like it might be a stretch, but I just wondered if anyone is actually even considering that.
Yes.
Ms. Fitzgerald, comment.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and we absolutely did look at that. In fact, we did a walkthrough with our building inspector, and unfortunately, we're going to fall prey with a partial demolition and partial reuse to the same thing that you fall prey to with McQuan in general, which is lack of ADA compliance, lack of fire compliance, et cetera, et cetera. So as soon as you change that use and flip it to anything other than purely educational, you've now invoked all of the grandfathered things are kind of out the window. So we did, in fact, look at that. In fact, that was part of what Mike had tried to shop around to see if we could even maybe get somebody else who might be interested in investing and bringing the building up to code. So we did, in fact, look at that.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Young.
Yeah, just a quick question. What kind of commercial uses did the committee consider, if any, for that particular building? And what did you restrict yourself to, and why?
Mr. McHugh. Basically, housing sort of reuses, whether that would be senior living, assisted living. Technically, I wouldn't say it was necessarily commercial use, Bruce, but it would have had a flavor of, again, residential use, assisted, senior living, those sorts of things.
And in terms of why, I do want to address that because I think it's particularly important. If you think about that piece of property and how important it is and how key it is to the fact it's located near our school, near the library and senior center, a lot of the feedback that we got on the survey that we sent out and in our meetings was a very strong and resounding please be careful about what you put in that piece of property. So, don't just shop it out and let the highest bidder go there. It's very important because of the fact that it's contiguous to those, to the school and to the library, for us to maintain control and to have something that would be very, simpatico with what we've got there.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 9 by a 2/3 vote, mind you, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it by 2/3.
Thank you.
Article 10, Mr. Mitchell.
I move the town vote to transfer $15,000 from free cash to be added to the amounts appropriated in Article 6 of the May 2018 Special Town Meeting for the purpose of replacing existing floors in the senior center and adjoining community room.
Second.
Mr. Mitchell.
The existing vinyl floors is original to the building built in 1991. The 27-year-old flooring has reached the end of its life and detracts from the beauty of the building. The bids came in higher than the original appropriation, $30,000.
Any questions or comments on Article 10? No, this is the senior center is adjoined to the library. The question is if we're replacing the library, why would we do this? Does anybody want to respond? Would you like to respond? Oh, please come to the microphone, though. Oh, no. Behind you. Oh, yes.
Sir, if I might respond. I'm Mary Collins. I'm the Director of Elder Affairs. The Senior Center is a separate entity from the library. We share a community room. However, aside from that, we do not share any other part of the library. Our flooring is 95% vinyl flooring. The library is all carpeted.
The question is what happens if they rip down the library? And it truly is, they're separate entities, and I don't think one plan has anything to do with the other. But Mr. McHugh.
To answer that question, to the best of my knowledge, there are no plans to rip the library down or rip the COA down. If indeed the library does move to a different location, we will look at using that particular facility, perhaps to expand the Council on Aging, but that particular building will not be demolished.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Corinne Cavato, 73 Winslow Drive. I'm chair trustee for the library. It's still a town building that has to be kept up to date. And we have to consistently use the senior center because we're not big enough, so when we have an author talk or a music event, whatever. And the floor really should have been placed a long time ago in both the senior center and the community room. So even if the library is not there in 10 years, it still will be a building that can be used, maybe an expanded senior center, maybe something else for the town. There's no intentions in our discussions with the town administrator to tear down the building.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 10 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 10 is adopted. Article 11. Mr. Hanlon.
Dave Hanlon, 5 Arthur Street. I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $25,000 from free cash to tree removal along the Camp Corny Road.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Hanlon.
There are over 60 trees that are dead, dying, or diseased along the road that need to be removed in the interest of public safety. There's not enough money in the annual tree budget to do this work, nor in the Camp Corny Recreation Fund to do this work. This money will be used to remove the worst trees to start. This will be a multi-phase project.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Norton.
I'm Patty Norton, Indian Path. I have a question. On the yellow sheet, it says $24,000 is what you wanted, but they're giving you $25,000 from free cash? Yeah, what's the difference with it? Where's the $1,000 difference come from?
That looks like, to me, is a typo, Ms. Norton. I think when you see...
The original number was a lot higher than $25,000, and I believe that 25 is the number that was decided upon.
Right.
According to the accountant.
Yeah, we're looking at the free cash number on that yellow sheet, and it's $25,000, which was the motion. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
I believe at a selectmen's meeting, Mr. Moderator, I believe at a selectmen's meeting, we had a discussion about this tree removal along Camp Quaney Road. I believe that the board was in favor of also including language for replanting of these trees. Because if we don't replant them, it's going to cause much more issues with erosion, water quality, and so on.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 11 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 11 is adopted. Article 12, Mr. Hickey.
I move the town vote to amend wage and personnel bylaws, Articles 2-12, classification and compensation, by deleting sections 11A through 11E, its an entirety, and inserting new sections 11A through 11E as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Hickey.
The changes of the compensation plan are highlighted, which include adding an hourly rate for part-time conservation agent, increase the top range of the town planner and backup van driver, and further adjust the minimum ranges for all positions from $11 to $12 to reflect the state minimum wage. This is a housekeeping article and merely sets the ranges for the positions. It does not fund the positions.
Any questions or comments on Article 12? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 12 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 12 is adopted. And with that, we will bring to a close the special town meeting and re-adjourn the annual town meeting. We are now into the blue sheets, if you'd like to follow along. And we will start, once again, Article 1, Mr. Bloss.
I move the town vote to hear reports of the various town offices, committees, special committees, and act thereon.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Bloss.
The reports voted on are those published in the 2018 town report.
Any questions or comments on Article 1? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 1 is adopted. Article 2, Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
I move the town vote to authorize the treasurer-collector to enter into compensating balance agreements during fiscal 2020 as permitted by Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F.
Second.
Seconded. Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
Yep, every year this article is voted, it simply allows the treasurer-collector to maintain accounts using credits instead of money to pay for banking charges.
Any questions or comments on Article 2? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 2 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 2 is adopted. Article 3, Mr. Mitchell.
I move the town vote to transfer $20,000 from overlay surplus for the treasurer-collector's tax title account.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Mitchell.
This money will be used to cover the costs incurred for filing and advertising properties with delinquent taxes and also to pay any legal fees resulting from this process.
Any questions or comments on Article 3? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 3 is adopted. Article 4, Mr. Hickey.
I move the town vote to fix the salary and compensation of all paid elected officers of the town as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Hickey.
This article sets the salary limits for elected officials. Article 5 funds the salaries.
Any questions or comments on Article 4? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 4 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 4 is adopted. Article 5 is the budget. So we'll have a motion by Mr. Dyer, and once it's seconded, I'll go through the procedure. Mr. Dyer.
I move the town vote to determine what sums of money the town will raise and appropriate by taxation. Transfer from free cash, transfer from town ambulance funds, water department revenue, water surplus, Title V, special revenue fund, MWPAT, loan repayments, receipts reserved for appropriation, conservation notice of intent, overlay surplus, and fund balance. Reserved for reduction of future excluded debt to defray charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, and to provide the reserve fund for 2020 fiscal year.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hickey. Mr. Dyer has made the motion. So what we will do is, we have the budget printed in the warrant. As usual, it's quite lengthy, but what I will do is I will call out the line item numbers, and I will pause. And if you would like to discuss that particular line, we'll come back to it after I've gone through all the lines. You can make your comment, we can have a discussion, and then I'll call for a vote on that particular line. What we are doing here is voting on the Finance Committee recommendation column. So there's several columns here, including previous amount spent on that line, what the department requested, what the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator recommended, but ultimately we're voting on the Finance Committee recommendation, so it's that final column. And then the funding sources are listed in that last column after the numbers. So I will go through the line items one by one. Once again, I'll pause. Please call out hold if you would like to discuss it. Line 1, accepted. Line 2, accepted. Line 3, accepted. Line 4, accepted. Line 5, accepted. Line 6, accepted. Line 7, accepted. Line 8, accepted. Line 9, accepted. Line 10, accepted. Line 11, accepted. Line 12, accepted. Line 13, accepted. Line 14, accepted. Line 15, accepted. Line 16, accepted. Line 17, Accepted. Line 18. Accepted. Line 19. Accepted. Line 20. Accepted. Line 21. Accepted. Line 22. Accepted. Line 23. Accepted. Line 24. Accepted. Line 25. Accepted. Line 26. Accepted. Line 27. Accepted. Line 28. Accepted. Line 29. Accepted. Line 30. Accepted. Line 31. Accepted. Line 32. Accepted. Line 33. Accepted. Line 34. Accepted. Line 35. Accepted. Line 36. Accepted. Line 37. Accepted. Line 38. Accepted. Line 39. Accepted. Line 40. Accepted. Line 41. Accepted. Line 42. Accepted. Line 43. Accepted. Line 44. Accepted. Line 45. Accepted. Line 46. Accepted. Line 47. Accepted. Line 48. Accepted. Line 49. Accepted. Line 50. Accepted. Line 51. Accepted. Line 52. Accepted. Line 53. Accepted. Line 54. Accepted. Line 55. Accepted. Line 56. Accepted. Line 57. Accepted. Line 58. Accepted. Line 59. Accepted. Line 60. Accepted. Line 61. Accepted. Line 62. Accepted. Line 63. Accepted. Line 64. For those of you turning, line 64. Accepted. Line 65. Accepted. Line 66. Accepted. Line 67. Accepted. Line 68. Accepted. Line 69. Accepted. Line 70. Accepted. Line 71. Accepted. Line 72. Accepted. Line 73. Accepted. Line 74. Accepted. Line 75. Accepted. Line 76. Accepted. Line 77. Accepted. Line 78. Accepted. Line 79. Accepted. Line 80. Accepted. Line 81. Accepted. Line 82. Accepted. Line 83. Accepted. Line 84. Accepted. Line 85. Accepted. Line 86. accepted. Line 87. Accepted. You know, one year I was the chair of the Finance Committee and somebody held every damn line. Well, so we have a motion and we have a second, and no one held any of the lines. So would anybody like to talk about the budget as a whole? No. Good. Oh, yes.
My name is Julie Gainey, live at 824 East Washington Street. I apologize because I don't attend town meetings, and after this meeting, I feel like I should more often. We had a extra cash that we've been expensing, and I believe the Finance Committee is very careful with the funds of the town, but sometimes I think we lose sight of debt and interest that we pay, and whether or not this excess cash should pay debt so we don't pay interest. So that fund, the money we save on interest goes to, supporting other things that have to be done in the town.
Excellent question. Mr. Sullivan, would you like to address that?
Yes. So that is essentially what we do with free cash. If you notice that all throughout the special and many of the annual town meeting articles are funded through through free cash. So once the budget's been certified, anything that's left over is used for free cash for these special projects. To go in and start applying it to debt, it becomes a tricky case of where you're going to put it. Who gets that debt paid down sooner? When we take out the bond, it's planned for a certain X amount of years, and it's worked very well for the financial stability of the town to pay our debt regularly at the appropriate amount. And it allows us to do some of these things that we wouldn't normally be able to do. If we just took the surplus, if there's a surplus, and applied it to debt, we wouldn't be able to do this, what we do with free cash. I mean, I think we're spending we're spending a significant amount of free cash, and that wouldn't happen. So we would have to look at why we would pay down debt and not use it for the free cash when these projects come up.
Yes.
I do have another question. Would free cash help keep our taxes at where they are? Because on every one of these lines, it says these funds are going to be appropriated by taxation. And I don't know if our taxes are going up because of what we're offering to spend here.
I mean, I think if you look at the overall financial position of the town, Hanson has some of the lowest taxes in the area. I think we're second, we're very low. I think second in the county, second lowest. So to say that we're not spending the money correctly, I mean, we really aren't seeing any large tax increases. Just talk to your neighbors in Pembroke, talk to your neighbors in Hanover, East Bridgewater, Halifax. They're swimming in taxes. So I think we've done a pretty good job as a town altogether in maintaining, a very low tax rate.
Mr. McDonough.
Just for one point of clarification, where free cash is an unknown amount, it's where we've extra collection of some past due real estate taxes. It's an amount that varies from year to year that we can't count on. When we're looking at the budget and the taxation that's funding the budget, these are expenses that are going to be needed to be funded year in and year out. For example, police and fire salaries. These are annual expenses that the free cash may or may not be there. So that's why we kind of differentiate between looking at free cash for one-time projects versus taxation for the overall operating budget.
Excellent questions. Thank you for coming tonight. Please come again. That's excellent. Yes, sir. Could you please come to the microphone?
How you doing? I'm Dan McDonough, 27 Carriage Road. We might have blew by the budget part of it, but I just want to give my take on, I guess, a new parent in the town. With McQuan closing, I know you guys are working very hard. I appreciate it. As far as the rebuilding of that, hopefully in the future. I just want to say I worked internationally. Things nowadays are more competitive, not less. I understand that a number of teachers got pink slips, so I want to see more investment in the schools so that, you know, we can stay competitive with my children. And like I said, I know there's not a lot to squeeze from, and but I just want to say to stay competitive with the other towns. Like we have, my son's in kindergarten, or will be. There'll be 22 openings for that. In Hanover, next door, they only have 1,000 more people, and they have 200 full-time kindergarten positions open. So I just want to say, you know, I know there's a lot of fixed income, but keep an eye on the schools. Thank you.
All righty, so all those in favor of Article 5 as printed in the warrant, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 5 is adopted. And I just want to say thank you very much to the selectmen, the FinCom, everybody involved, especially the town accountant, Mr. McHugh. They start working on the budget back in November, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of patience, and they did a terrific job. So thank you very much for putting that together. Now, Article 6, I am going to have moved by Mr. Sullivan from the Finance Committee.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate the following sums of money to operate the Recreation Department during fiscal year 2020 under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53, Foxtrot and a half, as printed in the Finance Recommendation column of the warrant.
Second.
This is a point of order. I don't see where this point is coming from. All right. Yes, the point of order is that this should be made by the Recreation Department because they brought the original article. As I pointed out at the beginning of the meeting, we were going to be using the parliamentary procedure as in town meeting time. And in Article 23 of town meeting time, it states that in towns where Finance Committee publishes its recommendation or suggested vote in a printed report distributed at or prior to the meeting, using its recommendations or suggested votes as the main motion enables everyone to keep better track of the proceedings. I thought that was wise here. It's unusual, I grant you, for us to have a motion brought forward by someone other than the department that originally asked for the article. On the other hand, this is a different situation than the Finance Committee making its amendment here on town meeting floor. They made their amendment several weeks ago. It was debated at the Selectmen's meeting. I know there's some disagreement about it, but I think for clarity's sake, I'm going to have the Finance Committee's recommendation brought forward as the main motion on Article 6 and 7. And then obviously if the departments wish to argue or make an amendment to the article, I would welcome them during the comment period. So, Mr. Sullivan, you made your recommendation, or your motion?
Yes.
And it was seconded by Mr. Hickey. So, at this time, would anybody like to comment on Article 6?
Could we possibly, could we hear from the Finance Committee on why they've arrived, where they've arrived, and...
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mr. Sullivan, if you could just talk about Article 6, and the explanation will be pretty similar for Article 7 as well. But
absolutely. The Finance Committee took a look at the request, which included $95,000 of taxation. We thought it prudent to remove that taxation and look at it as, take a hard fiscal look at where we are with the Recreation Department. If you, at the beginning of the meeting, you'll notice in the special town meeting, we had to supplement the Recreation Department with $75,000. That was $75,000 that had to be added to an operational budget that wasn't planned for in the previous fiscal year. With all the changes at the Recreation Department, we thought it best to take a look at to lower the amount by taxation and readdress this again at the October town meeting.
Are there any questions or comments? Oh, you're moving. You might as well come up.
Diane Cohen, 767 Pleasant Street, and I am the chairperson of the Recreation Commission for Camp Kawani. And I appreciate all the work you do for the town, and I understand we are in a tight fiscal budget. I just wanted to say that part of this budget is because there was a septic system put in at Camp Kawani, and it was something that was sorely needed, but it wasn't exactly planned for. It was planned before we got here as a commission, and that money has to start being paid back now, and we simply don't have that money to be putting toward those payments. It's black and white. We don't have it.
And the total
Mr.
cost.
Sullivan.
And the total cost of the septic system was how much?
I believe it was $350,000.
But it was planned for year over year. This is an increase over fiscal 19 of taxation that wasn't there, in addition to the 75,000. So it's really, if you add the 96 and the 75, we're up in the hundreds of thousands of dollars over the previous year's budget. I mean, that septic system is planned out to be paid out over several years. That's not the sole cost that's driving this up. So, we think it's important. We've left plenty of money here to operate the camp for approximately 9 months. We looked at it and said, you can operate the camp and all the facilities for 9 months. That will prevent it from affecting anyone's summer plans at the camp. Anyone who has a wedding or is worried about a baby shower that's going to be canceled. That's not the case. There is about 9 months worth of operational funds that will be attributed, and it will get us to where we can look at it again in October. Hopefully there'll be a new department head in place, and we can take a real good look at where we are financially and how we keep going on this without increasing year over year the tax burden on the entire population of Hanson.
And that is not our goal, is to increase the tax burden. We certainly don't want to do that. We're all members of the town of Hanson. However, I do want to point out that the camp has some very significant maintenance needs that need to be attended to, and these are not budgeted for. And I would hope that when you budget for the camp, that you will certainly take all of that into account, because at some point, I think the town is going to have to seriously consider what they want this camp to be in the town. Is it supposed to be something that hopefully will provide recreation, or do you want it to be something that just makes the money? And if we hear from the townspeople on that, it would be greatly appreciated, because then we would have a more solid direction which way to go.
Mr. Sullivan.
Absolutely, and I appreciate your efforts on this. However, when we do the budgeting process, we give the department an opportunity to come and present and see where we are and explain the long-term costs. We never saw anyone from recreation.
I understand that.
We're I won't say we're flying in the dark. We have the breakdown. We have discussions with who we can have. But this lets us take a real good look. This doesn't affect it. This doesn't change anything. I think we can safely say we're in favor of the camp, and no one's looking to change that. But we have to start taking a look at these issues, these financial issues, instead of just throwing money at it and saying, yes, hey, we're going to hope we're going to get someone to fill the position, and we'll hope they can generate more revenue. We just can't keep taking these leaps of faith. So I think this is more than fair for both parties. It takes us, like I said, 9 months, and October is only 5 short months away.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Young.
I see under line 1, under the estimated expenses salaries, that there's approximately $70,000 cut in salaries. I would just ask the chairman of the Recreation Commission, what salaries are going to be lost there? Is it the recreation director, whose job it is to actually look for grants for the camp and also to promote the camp and bring in more revenue for the camp? Is this the administrative assistant? Is it lifeguards? What is that $70,000 cut in salaries recommended by the Finance Committee? What are we going to be losing there? I mean, lifeguards, recreation director, administrative assistant? What does that represent to you?
Recreation director, please.
Sorry. I apologize. I'm not aware of anything that we could possibly cut. So we have one administrative assistant. We are in the process of hiring a recreation director, and most of our employees are at bare minimum during what is termed as not the busy season, and during the busy season, everybody is seasonal and pretty much working at minimum wage. So I don't know where they're planning on that cut.
Mr. Sullivan.
So again, there's no recreation director right now, correct?
Correct. We're waiting to hear from someone. We've offered the position.
So we're not paying a salary yet for that.
Right.
And again, this is a total year. If this was burnt in the first 5 months.
Right. It's left over from the previous unfilled recreation director position.
This amount will carry us through the summer.
Well, if we hire a recreation director, they would start.
But your total year appropriation that you're requesting was $193,000. So if 120, you're saying it won't get you 5 months.
No, it would.
It will get you 5 months.
Without the director.
Right, we're not fronting a salary right now.
Right.
So we have time to get through
To fund
that.
it when if he takes the position.
Correct.
Yes. Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? I think, Mr. Young, in the answer to your question, the requested amount was for 12 months of salary at $193,000, and FinCom funded 9 months at $120,000 with the idea of revisiting this in October. So that's the discrepancy in numbers.
Sure.
Oh, you've got to come to the microphone, sir.
When we voted, when we funded fiscal 2019 that we're still in, we funded a salary for a year for the recreation director. So to say that those funds are not there, those funds are there for 2019, okay? And a lot of which we haven't spent. So there's extra funds there to fund that recreation director who's hired. That recreation director serves a very important purpose down at the camp. Basically oversees a $300,000 enterprise fund in operation to bring in grants and also to promote the camp to maximize the revenues that we need to fund the camp. So to say that we're not going to fund the recreation director and just say, well, it's not, there's no recreation director now, so maybe we don't need one, or maybe we could delay the funding, really isn't true, and it's not in the best interest of the town of Hanson.
Ms. Fitzgerald, come in.
Mr. Sullivan, I don't want to speak for you, but I think what you're saying is that because we've got roughly 5 months of nobody in that position, that there'd be some money saved on that item, but that really wasn't the point that I wanted to make. I really don't want this to come across to the hardworking Recreation Commission members as a vote of no confidence from us or town meeting or from FinCom or really anybody for that matter. We do recognize and appreciate the work that you're doing. FinCom made some hard choices, and I think it's our goal to work as a team with you and FinCom and see if we can find a way to, help you right the ship. So I just wanted to make that point so that it didn't really seem as though it was a vote of no confidence from everybody.
Ms. DiMaggio.
Mary Ann Damasio, 552 Indian Head Street, and it just looks like the expenses are down about $100,000 in the year. If you could just say a little bit about that, or someone. The receipts, I'm sorry, not the expenses, receipts.
Hi, Emer McDonough. I just want to commend Diane Cohen. She actually got the new docks in down there that were worth $80,000, and she took the time out from her busy schedule to get the grant money for that. So I want to commend that. If you go down regularly to Camp Kiwanee and see those beautiful docks, that's all Diane's hard work. So I think she's put a lot of time and effort in, and I know there's a lot of history towards Camp Kiwanee, and the budget to me seems very low for the camp, considering everybody gets to enjoy it. It's free land to go down and roam, and I think there should be more of an investment in it.
Yes, sir.
John Zuko, 101 Glenwood Place. I'm Vice Chair of the Hanson Recreation Commission. I wanted to address the declining revenues at the camp. In 2016, as we all know, there was an investigation into the camp. So if you went on the website, www.campkewanee.com, which we did not own, all there was info about the investigation. So if you're a prospective bride and you're trying to find the camp and that comes up, you're going to see there's an investigation in the camp. You're not going to book a wedding there. I had to go create a whole new website using the official, with the new name, officialcampkewanee.com, link that finally in 2018 to our ad that we took out on Wedding Wire. And then in November of 2018, I was able to get the name campkewanee.com. I bought it at an auction with GoDaddy, and then both names I turned over to the camp. So what happened too in the meantime was that our previous recreation relations director on the website, who was overseeing the website that we set up, I helped them set up, took off the wedding page on the website, took off the Cranberry Cove page on the website, so took off the 2 pages on the website that generate the most money for the camp. So we had a whole period, a lot of 2018, where those money-making pages were not on the website. So if you were a bride and you came over from Wedding Wire, there's no wedding page. The end of 2018, I had to put those, when I finally got control back of the website, excuse me, I'm a little under the weather, I was able to put those pages for the code back on with pricing, put the pages for the weddings back on with pricing. So hopefully now those will start generating more money for the camp. So that's our goal, is to get those revenues back up.
Thank you.
I'd like to add.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want to get sick at this microphone now. Thanks, John. Okay, I'd also like to answer your question too, that the camp is having a lot of events. It's just as busy a season, but I want everybody in the town of Hanson to understand that wedding events do generate a lot of money. However, I was told that when I took this position that we don't want Camp Kewanee to just be about weddings. We want it to be recreation for the town of Hanson. So, and that being said, and I appreciate your support, ladies, that being said, the town has to decide. For example, if you book a wedding on a Saturday at Camp Kewanee, it costs you $5,000. But if you call to book a wedding and somebody has a baby shower booked there, that generated $400. There's a significant difference. Okay, if you're having a birthday party or an anniversary party or something like that. Okay, we want it to be affordable for the people of Hanson as well. So in the future, if you do take an interest in the camp, please.
Increase in regular events as opposed to weddings.
Right, there is an increase in regular events, not just weddings. And I pulled licenses, went and looked at licenses pulled for marriages, and those are down as well. And more people are doing destination weddings, and there are other factors. So while weddings do generate the most money at the camp, we are booked with other events that just unfortunately don't generate as much money. So the people have to decide on what they want the camp to be about in the future. I'm done.
All righty, well, an excellent discussion. So I'm going to move to a vote. All those in favor of Article 6, as recommended by the Finance Committee, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 6 is adopted. Article 7, Mr. Sullivan.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate the following sums of money to operate the transfer station during fiscal year 2020 under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53, Foxtrot and a half, as printed in the Finance Recommendation column of the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Sullivan.
So Article 7 sort of goes exactly with Article 6. We took a look at the transfer station, which we all know several years ago when we were sold the pay-as-you-throw program. The transfer station was designed to be a self-sustaining enterprise without taxation from the town, the general population. It was sold that the amount of revenues generated in bags would be more than enough to sustain the transfer station. And as such,
big difference between the two.
I know. The enterprise fund was created to do just that. we have finally hit a point where the requested amount of taxation that was needed to run the transfer station was an increase over what we had originally planned. We had been working with the previous health agent to reduce the amount of taxes to the overall citizenry. It was maintaining. This year, the request was higher. So we decided from a financial standpoint that it's time to take a look again at the transfer station and see where we go. How do we make this work for the entire population? You can drive down pretty much any street in Hanson and you'll see a large percentage of the population have switched to a private hauling system. Again, we do not want to get rid of the transfer station. We want it to be available for those citizens who choose to use it. But at the same time, we can't keep increasing taxes on the overall population to support an enterprise that is in some financial trouble. So we thought, again, we looked at it, we provided more than enough revenue to operate the transfer station for about 7 months. And that, again, would get us through October, where we could look at it again at October town meeting.
Mr. Santalucia.
Yeah, Pepper Santalucia, 517 West Washington Street. And I think I might have been sharing the stage with you, Kevin, when the pay-as-you-throw program was initially considered and then brought on board here in Hanson. And if I recall, there were some in this audience here today who referenced some tax increase from decades or years before that was sparked or was meant to cover a portion of the transfer station expenses. And we were told that it would be double taxation if we created a pay-as-you-throw program that really did cover 100% of the transfer station expenses. So we were told, and I think this was built into the design of the program, not to be fully self-sustaining. So the history is a little murkier than I think you may have characterized it. That being said, curbside pickup of trash appears to be gaining popularity. I'm using it now. I didn't use it at that time. So I think there still is an open question as to the extent to which the town in general should be subsidizing those people who are still using the transfer station. But I just think there's a little bit more nuance there, if I remember correctly, the adoption of that program back in the day.
Well,
Mr. Sullivan.
I also, when they sold the pay-as-you-throw program, there were a lot of nuances. We'll call them nuances. But there were also a lot of areas that were glossed over. They didn't fully count the fact of the hauling fees. Someone from the Board of Health can probably speak better to this, but the hauling fees for the trash went through the roof. At the time, China was taking, all of our recycling, gladly taking it. That has stopped. So, there are still people who are using the transfer station, not as trash removal, but for recyclables. So we're still paying, we're paying an increased cost for recyclables. We're paying an increased cost to haul the waste. The price of the bags right now could never fully capture it. So, it's, at some point you have to look at it and say, it's time to take a hard look at it as a town. Again, there's no department head there managing it. The Board of Health and the administrative assistant are doing a great job now, but now is the time for us to take a look from a financial standpoint where we want to go over the next few years as a town. And I think it's about ensuring we're doing the right thing now instead of simply funding these kind of funds to just get us down the road again.
Mr. Moderator? One moment.
We have some short-term memory problems. Once we leave town meeting, everyone walks out the door and takes a deep breath. It's over for another year. But we really need to look at this. We've got enough we've got enough funds here to take us through October town meeting and to let everyone sort of take a hard look at where's the transfer station going?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, John Siemens, 41 Winter Terrace. I've been a proud Hanson resident for many years, and I enjoy going to the transfer station and bringing my orange bags there. I don't have curbside pickup, and I don't feel like my tax dollars should be going to waste. I do feel that my tax dollars should be getting me the services such as police, fire, schools, and the dump, or the transfer station as we call it. It's an essential town service that I grew up with, and I implore everybody to keep the transfer station open, no matter what. If you want to pay for a curbside service, that's your business, but as a tax-paying citizen of the town of Hanson, I enjoy recycling. What's going to happen? You're not advocating we stop recycling, right? We are a green community, correct?
Just as a point of clarification, we're not proposing closing it at all.
Oh, good.
We want this to remain a service for those citizens who want to use it, but at some point, you have to look at managing the costs.
Well, that's why we have you, yes.
And that's something that the department head will have to get down into the weeds, but no one is looking at closing it. No one is looking at stopping recycling.
Very good.
But I think the Board of Health would agree that the costs have risen exponentially.
Yes, thanks for that clarification. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Hickey? Yes, sir, Mr. Hickey.
Just on Mr. Siemens' comment, only because the only thing I've said all night is second.
And you did
John, my question is, and this is a serious question, because we pay $2.50 for the trash bags, am I correct? Would you be willing to pay $5 for a recycling bag to have your plastic and newspapers recycled properly? Would you be willing to pay $5 a bag?
John, it's only a rhetorical question. I really don't want you to answer. But Asia has gone up.
I already paid taxes for that service.
Okay.
All right. And we don't need a side argument. Ms. Diaz.
You want to let him speak first?
Oh, sure. Mr. Howard.
Don Howard, 860 Winter Street. I've been there a few years. Back in the late 60s, I believe it was, I was on the Board of Health. And the state clamped down and they said no open burning. And the transfer station, as we used to call it, the dump, got burned off about 3 times a week. And Dick Hoyer, Jim Daly, and myself were on the Board of Health. And they called us into the State House and told us that we were going to get fined. I think it was about $1,000 a week if we didn't start something to correct the situation that the town of Hanson had. So Dick Hoyer did most of the running around at the time, but he contacted Calvin Overlock down in Dayton. And he came up to the Board of Health to the meeting, and we discussed what was going to be done at the dump. I'll call it the dump. And he said, well, we can try to make a transfer station out of it. So we set up two containers, one at first, and then we set up another one. And we had an open top container. As you drive into the dump on your left there, you can see a pile of railroad ties.
One moment, Mr. Howard, please. Oh, no, please, continue.
Oh, okay. And so we started the transfer station. And at the time, it worked fine. And then it got to the point I wasn't on the Board of Health, and we went to this all-bag system. And it was supposed to pay for itself. Well, I'm kind of disappointed because I was one of the first ones that we started the transfer station. And also went around to all the different towns around here, down to Hingham, down to Kingston, Duxbury, Situate, Norwell, and Hanson's, according to the state, is the best transfer station in the state. You drive in, you either deposit the orange bag on one side, to try the recycles on the other, and you drive out. You'd really be disappointed to go around and drive and see some of these other stations. You have to drive into the thing, get out of the car, throw your rubbish in the hopper, then you back out into traffic to go out, and they were very pleased with what was happening to Hanson. I ride around town on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and see all these trash boxes. It cost me exactly, I used, every two weeks, I deposit a 15-pound bag. I can get 8 bags for $10. So you can see I can go a couple months. And I'm disappointed to see all these people that don't want to take their rubbish up to the transfer station, because if everybody bought the bags, the transfer station would operate the way it should.
Thank you. Ms. Diaz.
Arlene Diaz, 48 Briggs Street, Hanson, Mass. I would like to offer an amendment that we use the amount in the FY20.
Do you have your amendment in written form?
I'll have the original amendment because I was supposed to do it.
Okay, so it's in the hands of the clerk?
Okay, and there was a second.
Oh, could you fill out an amendment?
I could.
Please. And so it has been seconded by whom? Mr. Young. So the amendment before town meeting, while the paperwork is being done, we have a motion by Ms. Diaz to have the fiscal year 20 amount as printed in the warrant, as requested by the Board of Health. So that amount would be $344,962, as opposed to the article recommendation by Finance Committee of $280,489. And in the moment, I'll allow Ms. Diaz or whomever would like to speak in favor of the amendment. Thank you very much. Ms. Diaz, if you'd like to speak in favor of your amendment.
The money would be to fund salaries for the entire year, and only $30,000 of it is for other expenses.
Anybody else?
Anybody has questions?
Anybody else wish to speak? Ms. Fitzgerald-Kemet.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to FinCom and the folks in the financial team, as it were, wondering what that does to the remainder of our balances, since this is a very delicate balance that we are trying to maintain.
Mr. Sullivan.
So if you look at, I think we're going with the original amount, which was about $57,000 in taxation. That would require cuts from somewhere else. So we will have to cut. I don't have the exact figures yet. We'd have to run that through the town account, but we will most likely have to pull that out of somewhere else in the budget, because our budget is balanced without a significant surplus. So any amendment to this will cause us to cut from another area of the budget, and that cut will not be made tonight. It will be after the budget's certified. We'll have to find it in a different line item out of the budget.
Any other questions or comments?
Again, Mr. Moderator,
yes,
through you to Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, could you elaborate a little bit on, I know you did speak to the Board of Selectmen about what that process would be after the fact, but could you just elaborate just a little bit more on that?
Mr. Sullivan.
As far as the post-town meeting?
Yes.
So if the amendment was made and passed, it requires to work with the town accountant, and we would basically go back and look. The budget isn't required to be certified at this meeting. So after the meeting, we would have to reduce, we would have to find it somewhere else in the budget. And I don't know off the top of my head where we would find that money. So we would have to sit down with the town accountant and look as to what else could be cut or trimmed.
Mr. Mitchell.
I urge you guys not to support this amendment. The Finance Committee is 100% right. There's a problem over there, and this is the start of fixing it. They're going to be fine over there until October. We can revisit it in October. But I urge you not to support this amendment. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am. If you could come to the microphone.
To the Finance Committee, again, I appreciate all the work you're doing. I'm sure it's not, I don't know how many hours you spend, but it's probably a lot with the town of Hanson. When you were saying that you'd have to look at what budget would have to be cut if we appropriated funds for the transfer station, can any of that come out of the free cash that we gave away to other departments tonight, like $30,000 for, I think it was the...
No, because that's been certified through other amendments already. The free cash is already...
So you can't...
The free cash has already been handed out in the amendments, so to pull it from an amendment that's already been voted by the town,
You can't do that.
no.
And as far as the transfer station and being a taxpayer in Hanson, someone made the point that, well, not everyone uses the transfer station, but not everyone uses the high school, and not everyone goes to the library. So I don't know, I don't understand that thought process.
Exactly. So the transfer station operates as an enterprise fund, and as it was mentioned by Mr. Howard, the way the program was sold was that if the entire town remained on bags, it would be self-sustaining. The issue becomes that while Mr. Howard can get away, last a month or so on a $10 fee, a larger family, someone with small children, the amount in bags is astronomical that you would have to buy. And again, it becomes sort of a, we don't know the exact percentage of the town that has moved to a private hauling system. And again, this is not a referendum on the transfer station. This is merely that we need to take a look at how we are spending our tax dollars. We have some very significant financial issues coming down the road that if we don't address these outlying issues now, and this gets us through October town meeting. So we will be able to get through it and readdress this in October, but it allows the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, along with our committee, to take a look at this and say, how do we turn this back? How do we do some creative problem solving and get this back so that it is a self-sustaining enterprise? That's the purpose. That's its purpose. That's why it's an enterprise fund.
Mr. O'Sullivan.
Thank you. Joe O'Sullivan, 625 West Washington Street. I'm a big supporter of the transfer station. How much is left in the assessor's overlay account? It's unaccounted for in previous.
One moment, we're looking that up.
Thank you.
We have approximately 97,000 in the, 397 in the
397,000. Could that money be used for this?
Only after the board is released. It's not available tonight.
It's not available tonight, I'm told. It's only after the board has released the overlay fund.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Ms. Diaz's amendment to Article 7, that is, if you want to substitute the original amount of $344,962 instead of the finance recommendation, signify by saying aye now. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Santalucia.
Yes, Pepper Santalucia, 517 West Washington Street. I think we deserve a little more clarity on this process that would take place afterwards. It's described as some of the people on the stage getting together and figuring things out. Well, we're here at town meeting deciding on line items. Is it the selectmen who will make up the deficit and decide? Is it it just, I probably should know this as having served on the Finance Committee, but there's a process I think the town deserves to know a little bit, with a little more detail from town council or somebody else. If we don't have a balanced budget when we leave here tonight, how is that deficit remedied? And what say does anyone here?
It's not a decision that we could make tonight, you know?
He wants to know what's going to happen
There's a number
after
of things
town
that we
meeting.
could do.
Right, but who gets to make that decision? Is it the selectmen? I mean, the town meeting usually decides the budget,
we would work with FinCom on that.
Maybe it would be another special town meeting or something.
No, Mr. Santalucia, I believe that we wouldn't need another town meeting. We have one scheduled in October. My assumption is, and maybe this is a bad thing to do, but my assumption is that the selectmen, the Board of Health, and the Finance Committee will work between now and October to come up with a solution, and then we'll vote on it then.
Okay, I think that's helpful for people to know here. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Young.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. The number of the 397,000 of the possible overlay reserve that we could possibly use to fund both recreation and the transfer station, that can't really be done in-house. You would have to, like you said, you'd have to return to the October town meeting, because only the October town meeting could transfer the overlay reserve and use it for those two purposes. And I really hope strongly, and I'm sure the rest of the people here in town hope that the Finance Committee, the town accountant, and the finance team can come to the conclusion that those are two excellent areas to use that 397,000, so we can continue to fund the recreation budget the way it is, and also the transfer station.
Mr. Sullivan.
So again, the mention of the overlay. That is a one-time solution for a problem that is not going away. The problem is still going to be there, even if we fill it with the overlay. It's just kicking the can down the road another year. This is a one-time. It's like funding the operational budget with free cash. We've done an excellent job in this town over the past few years of not using free cash to fund the operating budget, because it's a dangerous and slippery slope, because one year when you don't have the free cash that you've been using to fund the operating budget, now you're in some deeper trouble. It's the same with the overlay account. Again, this will take us through October. This will allow the transfer station to operate as is through October, where we can take another look at it again, and hopefully there'll be a health agent and a full board of health that can get this problem solved. Using a one-time solution of the overlay account is bad business. And you know that, Bruce.
Ms. Marini.
Kathy Marini, 181 Union Street. The overlay account is overseen by the Board of Assessors. They have to be very cautious and careful that if people go into the tax appellate court in Boston, we have to reserve so much per year, and that money is released gradually, as we're sure we have no tax obligations that we couldn't cover. So $397,000 is not available. Perhaps a small amount of that is, but that's not going to work.
All righty. Good idea, Mr. O'Sullivan. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, yes, sir.
Steve Hoey, Progress Way. On Thursday, I read in the Express that there's going to be a $30 charge for the dump stickers, for a 3-year dump sticker starting this month. And I just looked it up. It's on the phone on the transfer station site. So along with buying the bags, it's going to cost us $10 per year per vehicle to go to the dump. Anyone want to elaborate or tell us what's going on with that? Because that's pretty important.
I would agree with you, although it's really off track of the article itself.
But it's
do you want to address the sticker cost?
Is the income towards is to make the dump self-sufficient. Payable by check.
so you know.
The fee is going to be covering the stickers, the actual stickers that we had to purchase. And it's a sticker that's good for 3 years. So it's essentially $10 a year. And it's $30 for 3 years. And this is the first time that we've ever had a sticker fee. Surrounding towns are a lot higher for sticker fee.
All righty. So, all those in favor of Ms. Diaz's amendment to Article 7 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
The nays have it. The amendment is not adopted. Now, on Article 7 itself, as recommended by the FinCom, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 7 is adopted. Article 8, Ms. Norton.
I move the town vote to appropriate from fiscal year 2020 Community Preservation Fund estimated annual revenues in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for community administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in the fiscal year 2020, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. Ms. Norton.
This article ensures that Hanson's community preservation accounts are compliant with the Community Preservation Act, which requires that a certain portion of the CPA funds be set aside for open space projects, community housing projects, historical projects, and recreation projects. In addition, it sets aside money for the administrative expenses of the Community Preservation Committee.
Any questions or comments on Article 8? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 8 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 8 is adopted. Article 9, Mr. Norton.
John Norton, Indian Path. I move the town vote to adopt the capital improvement program as presented by the Capital Improvement Committee.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Norton.
This is the annual article to approve the capital improvement matrix that's been included in everybody's information tonight for the next fiscal year.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 9 signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 9 is adopted. And I just want, as a public service, Mr. Hayes has given me the score of the Bruins game. It's currently 3-0 in favor of the Bruins. And once again, thank you all for missing this game to come to town meeting.
No Celtics, Red Sox?
Celtics lost? Kyrie. All right, Mr. Norton, Article 10.
I move the town vote to transfer $558,000 from free cash to various department capital accounts as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Norton.
I'll explain them line by line, but line 1 is to install a fiber network in order to connect all the town buildings. Line 2 is to replace the garage doors at the Main Street Fire Station, which have fallen into disrepair. Item 3 is a safety and security. The current locking system does not allow locking of the doors from inside the classrooms or office. Item 4 is identified issue from original ceiling falling through the 1999 replacement tile. Remove and install new ceilings on the second floor classrooms, rooms 217, 218, the teacher's room, and the corridor. Item 5 is an old library pitched roof needs to be replaced. Item 6 is to replace the gravel parking spaces with asphalt. Item 7 is to replace shingles on the gym and entry vestibule. The school fully adhered EPDM, infiltration and leakage. Item 8 is to update the controller at the site and to add CO2 reset devices to improve the energy efficiencies and lower the operating cost. Item 8 is to replace the failing theatrical lighting system, replace the onstage lighting and controls with newer LED technology. Inadequate leg and border curtains need to be replaced.
All right, so I'm going to go through the various lines, and if you would like to discuss a line, please say hold. Line 1, hold. Line 2, accepted. Line 3, accepted. Line 4, accepted. Line 5, accepted. Line 6, accepted. Line 7, accepted. Line 8, accepted. Oh, I'm sorry, did I hear hold? Line 8 has been held. Line 9, accepted. So we'll return to line 1. Would someone like to make a question or a comment? Mr. Campbell.
Joe Campbell, Woodbine Ave. In regards to the fiber network for municipal buildings, will that tie all Hanson municipal buildings in with the school department buildings as well?
No. Mr. McHugh says no. Any other questions or comments on on line 1? Yes, ma'am.
Are there certain rules on security that we have to use fiber network? Because there's...
Do you want to come?
No? Did he say no?
Oh, Mr. McHugh, come to the microphone, please.
I don't understand the question.
Well, you want to connect the schools within the towns together.
No.
Oh.
As was just indicated by Mr. Campbell's question, we're not connecting the schools. Municipal buildings. Yes.
Is there...
Town hall, fire and police.
Yeah, town hall, fire department, police department, highway.
Is there a security reason why you have to use fiber network? I'm just thinking of the cloud. Is there somewhere that everything can be put up on the cloud so they can communicate?
Well, my understanding, in speaking with the IT director, is the cloud obviously, it has certain insecurities.
That's what I don't know if there are, and that's why I'm asking.
However, that is not the main driver. The main driver is that the fiber network will offer certain redundancies in emergency circumstances, and will also, in the future, create some cost savings in terms of not needing to have as many servers and things of that nature.
So is there a way that this can be put on hold, spending that $145?
Anything could be put on hold.
Has the Finance Committee gone over this?
Yes, I believe the Finance Committee has recommended.
Okay.
Would you like to address it?
We voted to recommend.
Any other questions or comments? So all those in favor of accepting line 1 as printed in the warrant signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Line 1 is accepted. We have a hold on line 8.
Do you know how much money we're going to be saving on line 8 with spending $45,000?
Do you have enough? Do you know, Mr. Hayes?
Energy management is one of those things, if you don't manage it, you will not know you save how much you saved until you do manage it. We have used this particular system in other school buildings, and we have come up with savings, but it is definitely one of those things we did it at McQuon School when we were balancing all the systems, and John Norton has some very extensive things in this when he's built theaters, so he can probably tell you more about that than I can, but we have used it in the past, and it saved a lot of money.
My theaters weren't stage theaters. My theaters were film theaters, not stage theaters. But yes, the LED lighting will save you a ton of money. And with the old lightings, because LED is the direction, you're going to start having parts problems and availability problems and things that are going to cause you some problems with the productions.
So I believe the answer is yes, probably, but we don't know exactly how much.
Yeah. You'll get paid back, but whether it's 2 years or 2 years and 4 months or 3 years, that would have to be determined.
Any other questions or comments on line 8? Seeing none. All those in favor of accepting line 8 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Line 8 is accepted. Now we'll go to the article as printed in the warrant. All those in favor of Article 10 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 10 is adopted. Article 11. Mr. Hayes.
I move the town vote to transfer $210,945 from free cash to capital accounts of the Whitman-Hanson Regional School. Items as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Hayes.
If you look at all the items as you go down the list, and some of them are going to be passed over, as you can see on, you're going to do it the same way for the whole?
Yes, yes. So I will read each line, and my anticipation is that Mr. Hayes will hold lines 3, 5, and 6 to pass over in a moment. So line 1, accepted. Line 2, accepted. Line 3 is held. Hold. Line 4, accepted. Line 5, hold, is held. Line 6, hold, please, is held. Line 7, hold. Line 7 is held. Line 8, accepted. So do you want to make a motion on lines 3, 5, and 6, Mr. Hayes?
I'd like to pass over lines 3, 5, and 6, please.
Seconded. All those in favor of holding lines 3, 5, and 6 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Those 3 items are passed over. We have a hold on line 7. Any questions or comments? Mr. Dyer?
Sure. So the high school is only 10 years old, and my question is this a one-time repair, or are we going to see this track to be repaired every 10 years?
Mr. Hayes.
The high school's 14 years old, and you're probably going to see it somewhere in every 10 to 12 to 14 years. As you use the track, the sides wear off. It's very similar to what happens with the turf field. We got 14 years out of the turf field. The life of the field was approximately 10 years. But with good maintenance on the field, we got 4 extra years out of it. Track is very similar. If you don't fix it, this resurfacing won't be a resurfacing. It'll be a complete tear it up. Because what happens is very similar to cracks in your driveway. After the water gets under it and starts to uplift it, you have to completely tear the whole system up and replace the whole track. So it will be way more money than this. But yes, it is an item, a track or a field are both items that have maintenance between 10 and 15 years. Unfortunately, that's kind of the shelf life. They get a tremendous amount of use. If you see anything that goes on at the high school, that field is used 24/7 by every sports group, whether it's football, soccer, lacrosse. So it gets a tremendous amount of use that the other fields aren't getting anymore. The advantage to that is we are saving on maintenance of the other fields because they don't get beat up like this does, but it does have a shelf life. It does wear out. So you're saving at other district buildings, but you are spending at the high school. So one way or the other, unfortunately, it does come at a cost to do these types of things. But in the long run, we looked at the maintenance just on the football field versus the maintenance, what it costs to keep it seeded, used, and you couldn't use it a third of the time because you have to take it offline to let it grow. So the turf did work, and the track is a different surface, and it does work, if that answers your question. But it does require this type of service between 10 and 14 years.
So with the track, through you, Mr. Moderator, for this track, we're only paying 40% of the overall cost of this project, correct? So at the end of it all, it's going to be about $240,000?
If we're paying 40 and Whitman's paying, yeah, it's right around $240,000.
So we're paying $240,000 every 10 years,
this is
10, 15 years.
Our 40%.
Yeah.
It's 60-40 exactly. Well, 59 and 8-5 or something. It's 60-40, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on line 7? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting line 7, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. Line 7 is accepted. So now, the accepted lines are 1, 2, 4, 7, and 8. All those in favor of Article 11 as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 11 as amended is adopted. Article 12, Mr. Hayes.
I move the town vote to approve $675,000 borrowing authorized by the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District to pay costs of designing and carrying out the HVIC improvements at Hanson Middle School. This is Phase 2, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto.
Second.
As I said, this is Phase 2. Phase 1 has been completed. The project shall consist of providing a high-efficiency variable refrigerant flow, VRF, heat pumps, air conditioning systems for the first floor classrooms and learning spaces at Hanson Middle School, Phase 2, located at 111 Liberty Street in Hanson. The middle school was constructed in 1998, is approximately 83,700 square feet and consists of 2 floors. The existing building classrooms are heated and ventilated throughout the use of hot water. Classroom unit ventilator units and currently do not have air conditioning. As part of this project scope, indoor ductless wall-mounted or ceiling-mounted AC units shall be installed within the classroom. It shall be piped and insulated refrigerated piping to outdoor-grade or roof-mounted air-cooled heat pump condensing equipment. Multiple indoor units shall be connected to each outdoor unit condensing unit to maximize system sizing, efficiency, and diversity. A new direct digital control system shall be provided to control and monitor the VFR system. All newly installed systems shall be fully tested, adjusted, and commissioned.
Any questions or comments on Article 12? Yes, sir.
Bill Garvey, 66 Morton Street. We have a subcommittee of our committee, repair school committee, and I mean, I'm all for the repairs of the schools, but none of these were brought to our attention. I've been trying to get meetings scheduled for over a year, and nobody brought these to us.
Mr. Hayes?
This has been discussed, and one of the reasons, Bill, it wasn't brought to you is you just said you haven't met in over a year.
I've sent plenty of emails and got zero response from anybody on the board.
We can't hold the school district up because that committee hadn't rescheduled any meetings for over a year. We brought this forward. We brought it forward to the selectmen at meetings. This is nothing that was hidden. Wasn't done in any backroom deals. It was done right out in the open. So if your committee was on it, you know, we weren't trying to hide it from you.
No, you're not trying to hide it, but you need to respond to emails that I send out. We have a meeting on the 23rd of this month. I hope you're going to be there.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns about Article 12? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 12 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 12 is adopted. Article 13, Mr. Blas.
I move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept and enter into a contract for the expenditure of any allocated or to be allocated funds by the Commonwealth and/or county pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 90, for the construction, reconstruction, and improvements of town roads as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Blas.
This article is a requirement of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the town of Hanson to accept state funding, including Chapter 90 funding for accepted roadways. This article authorizes use of funds which will be 100% reimbursed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The budget, approved each fiscal year by the legislature and governor, establishes the total funding available for Chapter 90 local transportation aid for that year. These funds are then apportioned to the 351 Massachusetts towns and cities.
Any questions or concerns about Article 14? I'm sorry, Article 13. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 13 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 13 is adopted. Article 14, Ms. Fitzgerald-Kemet.
I move the town vote to transfer $10,000 from free cash for improvements to the former Plymouth County Hospital property under the direction of the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Ms. Fitzgerald-Kemet.
This fund will allow discretionary spending throughout the fiscal year in furtherance of development of the former Plymouth County Hospital site, such as engaging design consultants and forestry professionals. All expenditures will need town administrator and Board of Selectmen approval.
Any questions or comments on Article 14? Oh, yes, ma'am.
It says to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate. Vote to, how would you raise?
I'm sorry, well, I don't believe that was the motion as given.
My motion was from free cash, ma'am.
Yeah, just a quick explanation. Before, no, that's fine. It's a good explanation to have. Before a source for the money is determined finally, free cash, ambulance, whatever, or taxation, whatever it's going to be, they'll oftentimes put that catch-all language into the warrant. Before the town meeting, however, a source is determined, and then the motion is written accordingly. And so Ms. Fitzgerald-Kemet made the motion to transfer the money from free cash. So that's the difference in verbiage between what you may be looking at and what actually gets made as a motion. But we're required to change those motions to be specific as to where the money's coming from. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 14 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 14 is adopted. Article 15, Chief Thompson.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen. I move the town vote to transfer $48,500 from free cash to cover the cost of a 2-day tactical combat casualty care course.
Second.
Seconded. Chief Thompson.
This funding will provide 20 police officers and 18 firefighters with a 2-day tactical course of instruction that will lay the foundation for our departments to mitigate an active shooter hostile event response. This funding covers all overtime expenses as well as the cost of the program.
Any questions or comments on Article 15? Mr. O'Sullivan.
I urge you to support this. Joe O'Sullivan, 625 West Washington Street. In 1999 and 2000, I was a commissioner on the State School Violence Commission. It was a joint House and Senate committee. This is an absolutely important thing to do. Our commission had 5 meetings around the state with all the stakeholders, first responders, school personnel, parents, and kids. And one of the first things they came up with is we needed training like this, so I would urge you to support it.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 15 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 15 is adopted. Article 16, Mr. Mitchell.
I move the town vote to transfer $50,000 from free cash to be added to stabilization.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Mitchell.
This money will be used to increase the stabilization fund. A stabilization fund is a mechanism for setting aside money either for unforeseen needs or for capital projects. Such a fund is intended to equalize the effort of capital expenditures over time and to provide a rainy day fund. The town's target has been to maintain close to 5%, which is the industry standard minimum amount for stabilization funds as recommended by our auditors, and will help to maintain a positive bond rating for future borrowing purposes.
Any questions or comments about Article 16? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 16 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 16 is adopted. Article 17, Mr. Hickey.
I move the town vote to transfer $40,000 free cash to be added to the Regional Schools Capital Stabilization Fund.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Hickey.
The stabilization fund sets aside funds for the exclusive use of paying for capital improvements to the Hanson School buildings and the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School.
Any questions or comments on Article 17? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 17 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 17 is adopted. Article 18. Mr. Garvey.
I move the town to vote to raise an appropriate $6,000 from water revenue to be added to the 1992 town meeting water emergency fund, Article 15, or take any action in relation thereto.
Second.
One moment. Mr. Garvey, I believe the way the motion should be phrased is I move the town vote to transfer $6,000 from water revenue, correct, Ms. Sloan?
Well, I read from the book, but I'll read from what we have. It says, I move the town to vote to transfer $6,000 from water revenue to be added to the 1992 town meeting water emergency fund, Article 15.
Okay. So I'm sorry, there is some confusion back here. I'm being told it is raise and appropriate. So you were correct the first time. It was my mistake. Nah.
Well, the paperwork I have that we had said transfer, and the book says to raise and appropriate.
Could you please read the motion as raise and appropriate?
Sure. I move the town will vote to raise and appropriate $6,000 from water revenue to be added to the 1992 town meeting water emergency fund, Article 15.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Garvey.
This article is to replenish the emergency line to $25,000, which is used for unexpected emergency expenses that are not budgeted in the general budget line.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on Article 18? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 18 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 18 is adopted. Article 19, Mr. Garvey.
I move to see if the town will vote to transfer from water surplus $40,000 to repave the parking lot at the Water Department office at 1073 West Washington Street.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Garvey.
The parking lot is in desperate need of repaving. The Water Department has been in the building for over 20 years, and the parking lot has never been done over. This amount of money will cover only the front section. The back section will be done at a later date.
Any questions or comments on Article 19? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 19 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 19 is adopted. Article 20, Mr. Garvey.
I move to see if the town will vote to transfer from water surplus $15,000 to purchase a new VFD, variable frequency drive, for the Crystal Springs deep well.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Garvey.
The VFD in the deep well has reached its life capacity and is in need of replacement. The VFD drives usually last around 3 to 5 years. This one has been in the well for over 6.
Any questions or comments on Article 20? Mr. Hanlon? No. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 20 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 20 is adopted. Article 21, Mr. Hanlon.
I move the town vote to transfer the sum of $50,000 from free cash for stormwater management services and related items.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Hanlon.
This money will be used for engineering, mapping, testing, public education related to the town's municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4, permit issued by the United States Environmental Protection Agency.
Any questions or comments on Article 21? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 21 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 21 is adopted. Article 22, Mr. Mitchell.
I move the town vote to confirm the approval of Article 17 of the May 4, 2015 Special Town Meeting to accept the donation of land buildings located at 100 Hawks Avenue containing approximately 9.52 acres. Said property be used for general municipal purpose as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Mitchell.
Town meeting accepted the donation of land and buildings located at 100 Hawks Ave at a special town meeting on May 4, 2015. However, the plan referred in that town meeting article was unclear as to the extent of the donated land. A fully engineered plan has been prepared to document the full extent of the donation. Accordingly, a confirmatory vote of the original acceptance is required to verify that the town meeting wishes to accept the full 9.52 acres of land.
Any questions or comments on Article 22? Ms. Marini. The question is could the Finance Committee explain their vote not to recommend? Mr. Sullivan.
Absolutely. We voted to not recommend this article because no dollar value has been given to the possible cleanup that may be necessary should we accept that land. We haven't seen anything that deems the land underneath the building as not having been polluted. And so without any sort of facts and figures, we don't know what's under there. If there's any sort of pollution, we never received any notification as to, from our standpoint, we have not received any facts and figures on that, so we voted not to recommend.
Mr. Clemens?
Phil Clemens, 46 Main Street. I chair the Conservation Commission. And caution is a very good thing. I mean, we've learned to decide how to be, what can go wrong with land and how to avoid those things or fix them if land has been abused. But in this case, there has been a lot of caution applied. Conservation has been watching the whole site since before the cleanup began, during it, and now the cleanup is essentially completed. Mass DEP has been overseeing this property along with Light Control, which is now owned by Hubble, which is a larger corporation, has more resources, and they in turn have engaged multiple environmental consulting firms to both plan and do the cleanup work. If someone isn't aware of the cleanup work that's been done, then they haven't been paying attention, I'm sorry to say. But Conservation has. We received all the paperwork necessary to allow the work to happen both near and in wetlands. A number of acres had to be cleaned up. There were spaces under buildings and near buildings that were affected by a variety of pollutants over the decades that Light Control and before them Wheeler Reflector operated there. That work has been completed. There is now some monitoring that will go on. This has been described in about a 1 to 2 inch thick report that has been reviewed, I believe, by Town Council, as well as by Conservation and our consulting, and by Mass DEP. And it's, the work has been done well by people who know what they're doing. There are some monitoring wells on the property, not which the town would be receiving. Downslope from where the town, from what the town would be receiving, there's about a dozen monitoring wells, and there is a certain amount of monitoring that will continue, but it won't be the land that the town owns. What the town is being offered is land that is upslope, that is higher, and except for the 2 buildings which are on it, which are the newest buildings that were ever built there, built in the 1990s, after people knew how to build things more cleanly than they did back in the 1900-whatevers. This property that the town's being offered, for the most part, has never had buildings on it since the glacier left. It's been woods. It's nice soil. As I mentioned to the selectmen the other night, I went to kindergarten on Reed Street, and we used to take field trips over there. We'd walk across the street and everything. We've been watching this property for a long time. That was back in the 1950s. But there's been a great deal of very informed and very competent work done on the portion of the property that did need cleanup. Soil was removed, other materials were removed, things that are essentially non-hazardous were put in place, but that is not what the town's even being offered. The town is being offered land that was not impacted by those problem pollutants. The entire site was looked at by Hubble. They own 70 acres. The 61.5, or whatever the math is, that the town is now being offered, it's not a concern. It's downslope from where we would be if we were to receive this. My level of confidence is very high. This is fine. I used to be the corporate environmental manager for a $1 billion global biotech company. We purchase property all around the globe. Compared to some of the things that get looked at, this is fairly straightforward and simple. I think it's been done well, and the town is not unlikely to get another opportunity like this to meet some of its very important municipal needs.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Oh, Ms. Fitzgerald, comment.
That notwithstanding, and thank you for that feedback, Mr. Clemens. I would like to mention that based on feedback from our council, that we've been led to believe that there may be some people that if we weren't to take this land as a donation, who would be interested in locating a business there. And I think we all know that we are lacking business in Hanson. And they're actively engaging Hubble and saying if this deal falls through, we'd like to try to locate a business there. I'm not at liberty to disclose what type of business that is, but it's been more than one business. And the other reason, and I'm just answering this because I'm the sole selectman that voted against it, and the other reason that I voted against it is primarily because we don't know the costs for the discussion right now, or at least sort of for the last 4 or 5 years, has been possibly to move highway into those buildings, and I don't think anybody would dispute that highway needs new facilities. But that said, we don't know the cost for moving them into that building, and we don't know the cost for cleaning up the old building. But I'm just one selectman with one vote, and I just thought I'd respond to, why I voted against it.
Thank you. Mr. Amico.
Steve Amico, 95 Stephen Street. I agree with Laura on that, but I also remember the engineer who was here for Hubble 4 years ago, who said that those buildings that were there, left unattended for more than 2 years, would start to deteriorate. Has anyone seen those buildings? Has anyone been through those buildings? What do they look like?
Ask.
I think the engineer
Mr. Fagan?
is here. Yeah.
Mr. Fagan is the town engineer.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's the Hubble.
Oh, I'm sorry. It represents Hubble.
My
Thank
name's
you.
Brandon Fagan. I'm with GEI Consultants. We're working for Hubble directly. To answer a couple of the questions, the contaminant level on the property, the whole genesis of the way this was developed was we identified property that was not impacted based on the investigations that were conducted on the entire property area. In addition, Weston & Sampson, your current consultant that's doing, building evaluation, conducted a series of borings, 3 of them inside of each one of the buildings, in addition to exterior investigations around the buildings. During that, we were present during their investigations to observe conditions with respect to the geotechnical borings, the impact, we didn't observe the same soil types and conditions we saw on the site, which we've remediated. Those locations were all virgin ground. So those investigations are currently in your presence. We didn't get a copy of the report, but they have been submitted to the town. We didn't see observations of fill materials. We did not observe odors. We did not observe the conditions that we would normally have seen if we were on the property. We started the investigation under the presumption that you had deferred maintenance on your municipal facilities. That deferred maintenance led us to approach you to say, would you be interested in these buildings if we were to subdivide the land? Hubble's undertaken a fair amount of expense to do just that, with the protection factor being we don't want property, being representing Hubble that would be submitted to a town that would have legacy issues coming back to Hubble, a long-term, situation. So that investigation, I would recommend reviewing all the documents we've done, the phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the closure documents. And there's a temporary solution on our portion of the property. You have a full, permanent, partial solution to the property, meaning the MCP characterizes the entire property. A permanent solution was applied specifically to the 9.5 acres that would be executed at closing for you. So that document does exist. It has been reviewed by DEP. To the point that it was taken, across the way, we did address that. I don't know if there's any other further questions related to that.
Can you address the buildings?
The buildings were built per se in 1993. The deferred maintenance, I'm not a professional engineer in that capacity, a structural engineer. They have been looked at by Weston & Sampson. I think the documents and records show where they are. The recommendations to restore are in your court. I think there was, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, there was supposed to be money appropriated at one point during town meeting to remediate or repair those buildings, or at least the engineering component of those buildings. Again, I'm speaking out of turn to what has been done in the past with respect to those. You know more than I do. The conservation, we weren't involved in any of that aspect of the work.
Ms. Fitzgerald-Kemet.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, to Town Council, I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on what that property cannot be used for, and also to address what the Hubble engineer said in terms of liability. Would we, in fact, be able to go after Hubble if things go south or we find something subsequent to taking on that property?
the town council.
Hello, Kate Federoff, Town Council. Yes, Laura, there are several restrictions that are on the property. So specifically, no residential uses could be allowed on the property, or a hospital or a medical facility, a daycare center, a playground, or outdoor recreation. In addition, you're not permitted to insert wells into the property because they don't want to draw water. We're up gradient where we're buying, the parcel that we're accepting, if town meeting chooses to, is up gradient, so it's not an issue in terms of water being transmitted from below grade, but rather if you dig a well, you pull the water, so there's that restriction. Specifically, the donation agreement specifies that we take the property as is, and usually in a purchase and sales agreement, that expires once you record the deed, but the deed specifically or the purchase and sales agreement specifically provides that that survives the recording of the deed. So we buy it as is regardless. But again, there's no significant risk to human health, safety, and there's no oils that have been detected on the property. It's been fully vetted by DEP. I think there was a $9-10 million cleanup. So the risk is relatively low.
Thank you.
So, any other comments or questions? Mr. Amico, let me hear from Mr. Hanlon first, and then we'll come to you.
I just want to say that in the Maytown meeting in 2015, the town voted to accept 2.5 acres of property. In looking at it, Hubble was generous enough to donate more property. The whole reason why we're here today is to accept more property that's, as Mr. Clemens stated, it's upland property, it's clean property, it's wooded property. We voted to accept a small amount. Now they're offering us a bigger amount of property that is clean. DEP, EPA, Army Corps of Engineers, and a whole bunch of other alphabet soup companies, organizations, cleared this property and said it's safe. We're looking for a piece of property. We have a piece of property being given to us. I think it's a good call. And remember, we did this 4 years ago. We had all these conversations then. The property was accepted. Now we're getting more property. It'd be a shame to turn it down. Please support this article.
Mr. Amico?
Well, I think 4 years ago when it was presented to us that it was going to cost $400,000 or $500,000 to improve that property for our highway department. And from now, what I understand, it's going to be in the $5 million range. Plus, we don't know what it's going to cost to clean up our highway department as it is right now. Where are we going to get that money from?
Mr. Hanlon, and then I'd like to move this to a vote.
Okay, through you, Mr. Moderator, the previous speaker. This is not about building a highway facility. This is not about building a building. This is not about tearing down an existing building. This article is about accepting the land. Accept the land, and we can move forward from there. As far as the number you just mentioned, I don't know where that came from, because that's...
Mr. Amico.
But anyhow, so this is just about accepting the land. So please support the article.
One moment, if we could hear from this gentleman.
William Scott, 328 Indian Head Street, Hanson. I was chairman of that committee early on. What happened was during that time when we were considering maybe a highway department being placed on that property, we reached out to an ad hoc construction company who came to us and gave us an ad hoc price on restoring the main building, the one bigger building of the two, for the potential for a highway department or some other use by the town. There was an estimated $400,000 to $500,000 fee that he came up with for the one building. He specifically, in his address to us, did not address the infrastructure, the secondary building, the salt shed, everything that would be added to it. And he's indicated to us at that time that it would be considerably more money. So for the naysayers who are trying to hold me to a $400,000 or $500,000 figure that was ad hoc for a single building is not true at all. That's all that was done, and we wanted to have a figure to present, to throw out to the town as to the potential for renovating that particular part of the project. It didn't address the entire project, which we did at a later time in meetings. So if people are suggesting that I made something up or suggested something, it's just the naysayers and the obstructionists in the town who are against the project.
Mr. Amico.
Well, I think that if we have an opportunity to have a generating tax revenue up there, I think that's probably the best thing for us.
All right. We're moving to the vote at this point. It's been an excellent conversation. Thank you. All those in favor of Article 22 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes have it. Article 22 is adopted. Article 23, Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
Yes, we're going to move to pass over this.
We have a motion to pass over. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. It's one of the best competitions of the night. It's better than the Celtics anyways. So we have a motion to pass over Article 23. It's been seconded. All those in favor of passing over the article signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 23 is passed over. Article 24, Mr. Dyer.
I move that the town submit to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Legislature a home rule petition to change the use of a certain portion of that land, approximately 62 acres, known as Webster Billings Conservation Area, so-called Article 97 land, as set forth in the certain order of taking date February 25th, 1975, and recorded at the Plymouth Registry of Deeds in Book 4050, page 355, on file with the town clerk's office, which order of taking states that a parcel shall be used for conservation purposes, and which portion is specified in the area proposes to be removed for, I skipped the line, sorry, specified in the home rule petition to be used as a conservation land and wellhead area purposes, and to remove any of those encumbrances on the title as may be required, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dedicate for conservation purposes another suitable parcel of land of equal or greater size and value to that portion of land which has been converted for conservation purposes.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Dyer.
This process is required to change the use of any property which is protected by pursuant Article 97. The town has determined that the property would be suited to serve as a water resource. This additional use will not interfere with an existence use as conservation land in any tangible way.
And I may point out that this has to be accepted by a 2/3 vote. Mr. Clemens.
Just to explain to anyone who has a question, the process of taking Article 97 land and making any kind of change to it, again, Conservation has been working something like 3+ years with the water commissioners on this particular topic. We didn't go too far with it because we didn't know until very lately whether the water supply was really there. But to increase to share management by Conservation and the water commissioners does require this action. Conservation does not take lightly any kind of conversion or alteration of its management, and we're required to, and did take a vote after all due discussion, and did vote unanimously to support this article. We wouldn't necessarily do that in every single case, but this is so important. The town, through surveys, several times in open space planning, has stated that and this is agreed with by people everywhere, I think, the #1 reason for protecting open space is to protect drinking water supply. And Conservation feels like, why would you protect a water supply and then never ever consider using it? Well, we are now considering using it. So again, Conservation, after all due process, does agree with and support this.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
Is town council left, or? No.
She just stepped out for a moment.
Okay.
Oh, she's here.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, to town council, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we are required in the circumstances that we find ourselves in with this particular piece of conservation property to have this article and to go to the legislature with it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Oh, that was easy.
She was not far away. All righty. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor by a 2/3 vote of Article 24, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it by the required 2/3 vote. Article 24 is adopted. Article 25, Ms. Marini.
Kathy Marini, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Board of...
Not yet.
Oh, that's my next job, sorry.
You running?
No.
I thought you retired.
I'm just tired.
Second.
Sorry. All right. I move the town will vote to adopt a minimum value of $3,000 for the issuance of personal property tax bills under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 54.
Second.
Seconded. Ms. Marini.
Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 54, establishes a minimum value of personal property subject to taxation. The value may not be in excess of $10,000. It has become increasingly expensive to collect many of the smaller bills as businesses close or move out of town. As an example, the value of $3,000 generates a personal property tax bill in fiscal 2019 of $46.59. The minimum value of $1,000 was adopted here in Hanson on May 4th, 2009. A yes vote would adopt a new minimum of $3,000.
Any questions or concerns on Article 25? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 25 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 25 is adopted. Article 26, Ms. Marini.
I move to see if the town will vote to increase the amount of funding for STAP, Senior Tax Abatement Program, and the Veterans Work-Off Program by $10,000 under the provision of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5K and Section 5N.
Second.
Seconded. Ms. Marini.
In May of 2003, the special town meeting accepted Massachusetts General Laws 59, Section K, which provides residents over 60 years of age to volunteer their services to the municipality in exchange for reduction of their tax bills. Seniors may earn a maximum reduction of $1,000 per fiscal year based on a rate per hour of services that cannot exceed the Commonwealth minimum wage. At the annual town meeting on May 6, 2013, the amount for funding was increased to $30,000. The program has grown in popularity and now includes 10 positions for workers that are veterans. That's under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5N. And that was accepted at the annual town meeting, May 5th, 2014. The Board of Assessors recommends increasing the amount of funding to $40,000. These funds would be paid from the overlay account.
Any questions or concerns about Article 26? Yes, sir.
Who knew? Where do we get my application? And does my service on the Rec Commission count as volunteer service towards this program?
It's not a town meeting question, is it?
I don't believe so.
It doesn't. So what type of service would you have to volunteer for to qualify? I'm 66, so what would you have to do to volunteer? Okay.
I am told that there is a meeting every fall at the senior center to explain the program and what jobs are eligible within the town.
That's correct.
Sounds good. Let me know.
Yes.
Arlene Verity, Indian Head Street. I just have a question, if somebody has this answer, on the minimum wage, or what are these senior and the STAT program, what is the wage that they are paid at this point in time?
Ms. Burndy, do you know?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it's the...
How much?
It's the federal minimum wage of $7.25.
So it is not, it can't exceed the Commonwealth
Exactly.
wage,
Right.
but yet the seniors are getting the federal wage at $7.25. Is that it?
Yeah.
That's all per hour. And they also, this is also taxable. They are sent W-2s on this also.
It is taxable.
So $7.25 an hour, and then they take taxes out. And obviously, I do support this. I just was curious as to why we would be only paying our seniors $7.25 an hour. Thank you.
I believe it's tied to the state statute establishing this program. It can't go above the Commonwealth's minimum wage, but it allows the town to set the minimum wage. So really, you can't go any further below the federal minimum wage. You can't go above the state minimum wage. And so the town sets that.
So the town does, but each town individually
I believe so.
can set it differently?
I believe so.
I see. So this town decided on that amount. Thank you.
Ms. Marini?
Nothing else. I'm just waiting for the vote.
Okay, I like it. All those in favor of Article 26 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 26 is adopted. Article 27, Mr. White.
I move the town vote to accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22H, as printed in the warrant.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded. Mr. White.
Acceptance of this section provides tax relief to parents and guardians of military service members who have died or are missing in action. Eligibility for this exemption is without regard to when the service member died or became missing in action. However, the exemption only applies to tax years beginning on or after January 1st, 2019, and until the surviving parent or guardians are deceased.
Any questions or comments on Article 27? Mr. Norton?
Looks like a terrific program. I wonder if anyone can give me an estimate of how many households in Hanson this might apply to.
Mr. White?
To my knowledge, there's one Gold Star parent in the town, but I don't think the provisions apply based on changes in her life as far as being a property owner. So right now, to my knowledge, there'd be 0 at this point in time.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 27, Mr. Campbell.
Yes, Joe Campbell, Woodbine Ave. Can that be amended to accept our Gold Star family member?
Mr. White?
The Gold Star family member would be eligible, but my understanding is there's a change in property ownership and so forth that in her life, and I don't know the factors going on in her life, but I understand that maybe a move or something like that.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Surviving spouses?
The question is, does this include surviving spouses? Mr. White?
Surviving spouses were already adopted in previous warrants.
Any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 27 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 27 is adopted. Article 28, Ms. Diaz.
Arlene Diaz, 48 Briggs Street.
I move the town to vote to accept General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F and 3/4, which establishes a special revenue fund known as the PEG Access and Cable-Related Fund to reserve cable franchise fees as printed in the warrant.
Second.
It's seconded. Ms. Diaz.
So the Department of Revenue, the Division of Local Services, has required that each town set up a revenue account for money coming in from cable, from Comcast, and it goes through the town and then is paid out to the access.
Any questions or comments on Article 28? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 28 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 28 is adopted. Article 29, Mr. Bloss.
I move the town vote to amend the Town of Hanson zoning bylaws as previously voted at the local town election on November 6, 2018, by amending Section 6, subsection M, marijuana establishments, to prohibit marijuana retailers in all districts by making the changes as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Bloss.
This article amending the zoning bylaw is presented in order to bring the town's general bylaws and zoning bylaws in alignment to avoid conflict. The new zoning bylaws would prohibit the retail sale of recreational marijuana to consumers.
And I may point out that because this is a change to the bylaws, it requires a 2/3 vote. Any questions or comments on this article? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Annette Beninado, 72 Brookside Drive. I just wanted to remind everyone that in November of 2018, the majority of Hanson voters voted yes to prohibit recreational marijuana retailers in the town of Hanson. They voted not to sell recreational marijuana in their backyards. Tonight, I'm asking you to vote yes again to prohibit the zoning of recreational marijuana retailers in all areas of Hanson. A yes vote tonight will bring our zoning bylaws in line with our general bylaw. And I just wanted to remind everyone what these recreational marijuana retailer shops sell for products. They sell gummy candies, lollipops, soda, and baked goods containing high concentrations of THC, which is the psychoactive compound that gives users the high. And these products are so potent, and they may look harmless, but one gummy bear is enough to make an adult high for hours, to the point where they cannot drive a vehicle. So these items are being sold as disguised as looking like candy, but they're very potent, they're not harmless. These retailers also sell marijuana concentrates like oils and waxes with THC concentrations.
Move to vote.
It's a good point. I mean, if you could keep your comments to the zoning bylaws.
All right. Well, I just wanted to point out as well that the impact to the property values in town, well, according to Realtor.com, homes within a half mile of a marijuana business often have lower property value than homes in the same county but are farther out. Most people simply do not want to reside near these structures. And the regulations around recreational marijuana are constantly changing in Massachusetts. Every Thursday, the Cannabis Control Commission issues a new regulation. They're now discussing whether or not they want to get rid of hosting agreements, and which would prevent towns from collecting additional revenue from a recreational marijuana retailer. That's a pretty big impact. This would also mean that the Hanson Board of Selectmen would have no control over what recreational marijuana business came into town. And the business owner would be issued this license directly from the Cannabis Control Commission. So they would have, the town of Hanson would have no control over...
One moment, you know, I know the hour is growing late. We're getting to the end of the meeting. But it's this woman's first time speaking at the meeting tonight, and I'd like to give her the microphone for a few moments.
So I just wanted to point out that we'd lose local control if this was to pass. There's a lot of unknowns with these regulations, and these laws are just not fully established yet. We just don't know what we'd be opening ourselves up to if we didn't prohibit this. And just as far as pointing out, the 2/3 of Massachusetts towns have already prohibited recreational marijuana retailers. Most of the surrounding towns around us have prohibited: East Bridgewater, Pembroke, Hanover, Norwell, Duxbury. So I'm just asking for everyone to vote yes tonight to amend the zoning bylaw to prohibit recreational marijuana retailers. A yes vote will bring our zoning bylaws in line with the general bylaw, and a yes vote tonight will honor the thousands of Hanson voters who voted to prohibit it in November. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Campbell.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, through you to Town Council, I have a question in regards to zoning, specifically for zoning, as the previous speaker talked about losing control. If we get rid of the zoning, we also get rid of our current control. Is that correct?
The Town Council.
So I understand what you're driving at, but the reality is if you voted to prohibit the marijuana retailers, there would be just a prohibition, so you wouldn't lose control in the underlying zoning relative to your cultivators, manufacturers, and testing facilities would remain in place. If you had zero zoning and there wasn't a prohibition spelled out in your zoning bylaw, there wouldn't be local control, but you have existing zoning. So this would in fact just prohibit marijuana retailers in the town. I think it's important to note for the body too that as municipal council, we're kind of working with a moving target relative to marijuana because it's a new use and we don't have much case law to look for. So at the outset, when we were dealing with communities who were looking to prohibit, we had suggested it's best to do a zoning and a general bylaw based on Attorney General's guidance. Since that time, a case has come down with very similar facts to what Hanson is facing at the moment, in that it had created a zoning bylaw to address all marijuana uses, allowing it but zoning it in the town. Subsequently, at another town meeting, there were two petitioned articles, one for a zoning bylaw amendment to prohibit marijuana uses and another general bylaw to prohibit marijuana uses. Well, because of the difference in quantum of votes that's required, the zoning bylaw failed and the general bylaw passed. That general bylaw, it was appealed to the land court for determination. It was determined that if the town chose to walk the path of zoning marijuana and subsequently sought to prohibit marijuana through a general bylaw amendment, that general bylaw amendment would be ineffective. So if you are looking to ban marijuana retailers in the town, it's important that you do pass the zoning bylaw tonight, because otherwise you're left with this uncomfortable position of having a general bylaw that could be challenged as not being appropriately passed to prohibit. So that's the best advice I can give you. Naturally, this is just a land court case, so it's potentially subject to appeal, but that's the best information we have at the moment on May 6th.
And I have a follow-up. When the state approves it statewide for retail, where's the town of Hanson then? We're back to ground zero, correct?
If the state mandates that localities approve, is that what you're suggesting?
If the state allows retail statewide, then we're back to ground zero, and all the work that we did in planning for the zoning,
So
go back to that again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to step on you. So that would require a legislative change, obviously, because the statute expressly provides that communities may prohibit. Right now, Hanson, regardless, was a yes town anyway, so you were restricted by a ballot bylaw requirement. You had to do both, whereas the communities who had voted no only needed to do a bylaw amendment. But I guess theoretically, if the state changed its legislation, sure, you'd have to come back, but you'd have to come back and create another zoning bylaw and pass it at town meeting. Otherwise, then it would be allowed in the locations where, you know, for example, for marijuana retailers in the commercial zone, or, you know, wherever other retailers are allowed. But again, that would take a legislative change prior to having any impact on the town's ability to control it.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 29, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it by the required 2/3 vote. Article 30, Mr. Dyer.
I move the town vote to set the spending limit of the following revolving accounts in accordance with Hanson General Bylaw, Article 2 through 9, Section 3, as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded, Mr. Dyer.
This article sets the spending limits for the revolving the annual revolving accounts.
Any questions or comments on Article 30? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 30 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 30 is adopted. Article 31 is a motion I get to make. It's a motion, oh, Mr. Hayes?
Ladies and gentlemen, before he makes this motion, I just want to remind you, the other night on Sunday, I moderated a candidates night. We have several offices in this town that no one is running for. We have to get people to step up, because this is one of those articles that he's talking about. I think we're missing. There is no one running for Board of Health. They haven't had a full board in a while. There's 3 or 4 other ones that they came forward. 3 other ones. So ladies and gentlemen, take a look, because the more boards that don't have enough people that come forward, you won't be able to operate government in this town. It's been having havoc with the Board of Health. So please, if you can take some sort of a position in this town, please think about doing so, because there are empty seats. And if you want to put one of your neighbors in that seat, get a bunch of people to write his name in, then that works too. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that.
I would point out the town clerk absolutely adores write-ins. So please, by all means. So I hereby make a motion to hold an election on Saturday, May 18th at 10 a.m. Correct, Madam Clerk?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor of Article 31 signify by saying aye. Aye. Oh, I'm sorry. I make a motion for Article 31 to be approved as printed in the warrant to hold an election on May 18th. Seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 31 is adopted. I hereby adjourn this town meeting until Saturday, May 18th for the purposes of holding an election.
Thank you.